Yeah, she said we should check. Yeah.
And he's making her crazy. She's hard. Now she can't hear it.
She said she's looking for.
Yes. She's not. Chase me down the street. Wait, not about this.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. I remember.
Would you get chased down the street?
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We opened up the work session at 6 o'clock, did some professional interviews, and I'd like a motion to open up the public portion for agenda items only.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any questions from the public regarding the agenda item? Please come up. Yeah. Yeah, you can come up.
Yeah, you want to come up to the microphone or just? Chris Sheridan, 181 West Oldest. As far as the library board, I'm noticing there's a personnel issue for closed session. I'm wondering what that connection is.
Yes, and I just spoke to Mr. Hassel about that. We're going to discuss the expansion of the board as was recommended by, I believe you sent the letter.
Yeah, okay.
So we're going to discuss that tonight in closed session.
Okay, and all candidates have been reached out to as far as interviews, because I know you're interviewing candidates for some boards.
Ms. Cole, I believe, was it all, everyone that was on the list that we sent you?
Yeah.
We're scheduled for next week, the 14th.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me as a member of the library board?
Not at this time, we don't.
Okay, thank you very much. No.
Heather Lums, Harris Avenue. Will you be voting on 120, the pilot program?
We're not voting on it tonight.
Okay. I had been told that I could have the report for 120, and when I came down to do an over, I was told I can't have it. And I actually emailed everybody. Is there a reason you don't answer your emails?
Well, I'll get back to
I'm
that, but
asking you, is there a reason you didn't email me back?
yes, because we wanted the attorney to address the issue.
What's the problem? You said I could have the report.
Joe?
It's a draft report, it's not a public document yet. After tonight, it may very well be. We'll hear from the economist tonight, the planner tonight, and in fact, with regard to the open comments on it, there'll be a question and answer period after his presentation.
For us, we
Yeah,
get it,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. That was the-
I also have another open, and it's for the applications that they put forth. If that's due tomorrow, do you know if I will be getting that?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and you just had one more thing, and I can't remember. I guess I'll ask later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Ross, 180 Chisholm Street. I was with you and Mike last week about the library and about adding people. Is there any reason why nobody is there going to be in your session from the library board? If there's a question or anything?
There's not. You mean tonight at the closed
Tonight,
session?
yes.
No, because it's just a matter of whether we have the authority through the statute to
To your statute?
to
or the-
expand the state statutes.
Yeah, you
There's
can.
no ordinance, there's no library ordinance, as you probably realize.
Right, yes, but
Once the
I-
referendum passed, it became a function of state law. So-
Yeah, and I read through all the legal stuff that I have at home, and they did say that it's up to the board to have 5 or 7 members.
Right,
So-
and it's our discretion, so yes, we're gonna discuss it.
It's up to the, not the library board, it's up to the mayor.
The mayor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, correct.
Okay, all right, but you don't want anybody from the, if you're just deciding that,
We're just, well, we're just gonna discuss it tonight.
okay? And when are you gonna discuss, who you gonna put on?
Next week, we have interviews on the 14th, next Tuesday night. We did a special session for interviews.
Oh, okay, so library
And they've
board,
all been notified as well.
because this affects me, us, you know.
Mhm.
So, you don't want any input from us?
Well,
Do
we're
you have
gonna,
any questions or concerns?
Can I answer?
you sure can?
So I think that the discussion tonight is more about procedural and how to go about doing the
Oh, okay.
expansion, if we're talking about it. We are doing interviews next week for various boards across the town and appointments. And once we talk about the expansion and we actually carry through with that process, if we're going that way, then we will have 2 additional seats that we need to fill, and we'll reach out to members of the community again to see if they're interested in filling those seats. So the people that may be interviewed this time may not be the people that are the same ones that were interviewed for next time. So it's going to be a staged process. That's as far as what I know. If we wouldn't be doing all 4 or 5, whatever board members right now.
Okay, well, what about, when we talked, I spoke about the treasurer and Karen. Is that something I can put on a shelf or?
I mean,
You're
We're gonna discuss
that?
that, we're gonna discuss that next Tuesday night.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Diana Hess, I know we just talked, but I guess I'm confused. If the only thing you're talking about is to find out whether legally you can change it from 5 to 7 or whatever, why is it a closed session item?
And I think there are other personnel issues regarding the library board that are going to be
Oh, well,
discussed.
that's where we thought you should have somebody from the library there. We were just told that it was only about whether it go from 5 to 7, so then it's changing.
No, that was just the appointments that were. Just the expansion. I wanna talk about it with them.
Oh, that, we're going to open session.
Well, that's what I was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I was confused why it was put under there. I thought you just wanted to interpret to us the statute and your interpretation of it.
I mean, the statute is, you have the option to make it a 5 or 7 board. That's,
Yeah, that's all it is.
it's your
yeah.
decision, yes, no, maybe,
Yeah.
whatever.
And the mayor will make that decision.
I'm for it.
And,
The more the
there'll
merrier.
be interviews for whoever wants to
I
serve.
understand that, but that's why I'm saying why would
Yeah,
we?
no, I was under the impression there was some other issues regarding some financial issues or something with the bookkeeper and so forth.
Bookkeeper's hired.
Yeah, so if all it is the composition of the board, it's not, that's it. It's,
My other question is, you had said that anybody that's going to be interviewed next week has received some kind of a letter. So if there's other people that were hoping to be interviewed, can they plan to get a letter, or does that mean that they were not considering them?
If they sent us a letter before the end of the year, stating.
Well, they were
had
getting a
interest.
letter that we had sent you.
Yes.
So those 2 people also will be interviewed?
You're talking about the expansion.
Yeah, I know the letter you're talking about, the letter for us that prompted us to go.
Right,
from
I
5
just,
to 7.
if you were going to go to 7, those
Yeah,
are 2
absolutely.
people we would like to include in the
That's fine,
interviews.
that's fine, and I'll have the, reach out to them for next Tuesday.
I don't appreciate it.
yeah,
Thank you.
so that, if that's all it is, and now I realize that's all it is, it's an open session item, so it's,
Yeah,
the
and I
mayor will
didn't plan
decide if it's.
I think the positions that were suggested were for new positions.
Mhm.
We have not created the positions yet. I think it's inappropriate to start interviewing for positions that don't exist. So if we're talking about people that are coming up for positions, let's create the positions and then open it up for.
You have to, because
All right,
right,
well, that's fine. Well, let's do that now then, because I think that we've gotten where we want to go.
yeah.
This
But
is
if
what
you're
we're gonna talk
interviewing
about.
next week,
Understand the
like,
point,
we
then.
just wanted to have other people that showed an interest be
Right,
included in your interviewing.
But right now, if we interview now, we're actually using the positions and the interviews for those two positions.
Where there's
that
no
are-
availability.
Well, tonight you're gonna
Well,
decide.
that's fine.
So I don't think we should be interviewing additional people for positions that are gonna.
That's fine, Mike. We're gonna take care of this right now.
Half that list came from people that.
Hold on.
We didn't even post these things were open.
Um,
The applicants are from,
Uh,
half the applicants.
Not a position.
That's why.
I'm saying, I
The mayor-
You got one position.
Hold on,
Hold
hold on. I'm just gonna expand it to more members, so you can add the two of them to come in for interviews next week. And I'll give you their names over now. All right?
But we're only allowing those two? What about?
No, we have,
No, you have a whole
we
list.
have the others coming in.
We just wanted to add it to your list.
But are we opening up the opportunity for others to step forward and to do the interview?
Well, we have more people that interview than we have open spots
But
anyway.
that might not be all of them. I think if you're gonna expand it, you need to open it to a larger group of people.
Here, I got the list with who you're throwing off and who you're, I mean, come on, you're throwing a guy off. No, this was emailed to us.
Well, this isn't, none of us
You
voted
know
on
what?
it. None of us
No,
voted on
but you
this, so.
told everybody who you were appointing that they were on,
I
and then you accused me of leaking
I did
information.
not tell one soul anything.
I'll read
that
the
was
emails
discussed
out
in
loud,
any-
Nick.
I'm telling you, I've never discussed anything with anyone.
Well, it might not have been you,
Well, it wasn't me. Well, you're claiming it's me. It was not me.
but you were accusing me of leaking, when you wanted to know who leaked it. Who
I
told the
didn't accuse
people
you. I said
that
you
they,
were.
who were the people who told the people that they were gonna be appointed? Because they all came dressed
I
up
don't
on
know who told the
Revlon.
people that they weren't gonna be appointed, because they all
I
told
did.
me.
I did.
Well, okay, well, that's leaking. I'm
I
telling you, I
did.
didn't leak. Nothing's set in stone. We're having the interviews next week, so for you to tell people who are gonna be on the board.
No, I
is
put,
ridiculous.
because they're being put off before their date of term expired.
Who's that?
Right here, Eddie Aboud from the library, his term ends 12/31/22.
He was never reappointed last year.
Not according to this.
It wasn't. He wasn't.
Remember,
And
they-
that's beside the fact. I don't wanna go into each
In
individual person
119,
right
he
now.
was appointed till 22.
No, I think, remember, when the referendum passed, the
Then why
initial
is it
board
on
is
here?
staggered terms. After the staggered
Then
terms.
these need to be done right.
I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's accurate.
What happened?
Then don't send out paperwork that isn't right, Mike.
So tonight you're gonna decide.
That's a
5 or
big
7.
problem here. There's a lot of
It's
dates
gonna be set.
missing.
That's it, so it's all, yeah.
And then
And
you'll
it
add
clearly,
people, and then-
to get appointed to the board, you need to have an R behind your name.
So the list that I received,
I
did
think
come
it's
from,
Tuesday.
did come from
Tonight that I
the,
can't be there. It's 14.
from the clerk. The list came from the clerk. I asked about the appointments, and I didn't remember appointing that person to that term. And after some research, it was true that it was not, he was not.
Well, why wasn't that shared? Why wasn't that information shared? Why was it a secret? Because I was never given an updated list.
I didn't know until the end of the year.
So the question now is, getting back to the library, now that we're gonna expand it to 2, and we're gonna ask the 2 that you sent in with the letter, Mr. Sheridan, I believe, also signed the letter.
He's our secretary.
So I guess the question is, Committeeman Casimir, you wanna open it up? If there's more people that may want positions on the board.
For those additional spots, I feel it is fair to open it up to the members of the public, and maybe we don't appoint them until like the first meeting in February.
And what about the current 5 people on the board? In other words, a year ago, when a person, I'll say it that way, was reappointed by the board, and a whole year went by, and nobody said to us, and I understand maybe
Who was
some
reappointed by the board?
our treasurer.
The person,
And
they
we
were
did
not
not know-
reappointed by the board because the
Our
board
board.
cannot.
I understand, Mike,
We
it was
cannot
a-
reappoint somebody to.
I understand that, we made a mistake, but my question is, the fact that we made a mistake, we thought that once he was on, we could vote the person back. It's our mistake, but a whole year went by, and nobody contacted us and said, somebody's term is up. Are you changing this person? Did you do this? Our minutes are posted. People would have seen in the minutes, this person was reappointed for 5 years. So it's just interesting that a whole year goes by and nobody says, how come your board wasn't asked to reappoint somebody? And then suddenly, now 2 people you want to take off. And it just seems strange. Like, you knew a whole year went by, Mike. Why didn't you have a contact us?
And Diane, that's a mayor's appointment.
I know that, but I'm saying a whole year.
Right,
Somebody
and
could have
you know
said,
what?
did you know? Why didn't you?
If I felt it was appropriate at the end of the year, I would have made an appointment, and it may or may not have been the person that was currently in the position.
But that's
So
why we
if
take a
we want
year.
to go back in our time and take a look at that, then I would not,
Mike, I'm just asking why,
The
if
point
this was
is,
a concern,
towards
why
the
didn't you
end of
ask
the
us a year ago?
Towards the end of the year, when there is a change in majority of the township committees, I took the initiative to push for, the nominees, or at least the boards, to take a look. So I suggested some changes.
So a year ago,
And-
you didn't feel those changes would have happened this year, you feel they do? Is that what you're saying when you say the majority of the board changed?
No, I'm talking about
But you just said the majority of the board changed, so what
the
would have been?
majority on the board changed, yes.
So what would have been different a year ago? That if you had a concern about us forgetting, not realizing that you should have reappointed this person,
Right.
why didn't you, the whole year that you were mayor, contact any of us and say, hey, you guys may not have known, we have to do the official appointing, come to a meeting, whatever, meet with us? And you just said, when the majority of the board changed, so I'm asking what you mean by that.
I'm saying that there was a shift in.
There was a meeting at Mike's house with Shade,
Oh,
and this letter came out the next day.
well,
We
that's-
know.
That's
We
very
live right up the
appropriate.
street from us. We always know what's happening.
Well, is that
So-
what you meant by the majority?
I just-
I just want to know,
I'm
because you
saying there was a
said,
change in majority, which meant or meant that there would probably be a change in leadership of the township. And therefore, I looked into the appointments, and I noticed that there was an irregularity. I followed up with the clerk. The clerk said, I don't have a resolution appointing the person who was supposed to be appointed last year. And that was far enough into the year that.
So at this point, it was clearly an error all the way around. Nobody picked it up, and it's being corrected now. So
yeah, but my
it's going to go to an
concern is,
extra 2 members. There's going to be interviews scheduled.
having 2 more is not the question. My question was about the people currently on, especially a treasurer who is doing
A phenomenal.
a
I know, that's fine,
phenomenal
and I spoke
job.
with Ms. Ross
To
about
step
it.
in and have somebody else step in and do it
At
is a
length.
problem.
We never had a library board before. It was passed by
Right.
referendum. We worked together
Oh, I
to try
know.
to get it
I
done.
understand that, that's
And
why we're
maybe there was
saying,
some things were overlooked and errors were made. So
The current
we're
board
feeling our
is
way
doing
through
a
it.
phenomenal job.
and we just,
And we're not saying that you're
No
not.
doubt.
Okay, so what, if it ain't
Also-
broke, don't fix it. But
We're asking
what I wanted-
so adding
our
2 to
clerk
it is fine.
to add to the appointment list, the library board, so this will not be an issue in the future. Until this year, we didn't have a condensed list, of all the boards that need to be appointed. So if somebody said, hey, we need to look at the library board, it wasn't, presented up front. Now it's in one document, now we're able to take a look at it all at one time.
So my question just goes back to when you guys do your interviews next week, with that list of how many people, assuming as the lawyer just said, which all said it's going to be 7, assuming he's, so it's going to be.
It's gonna be 7.
Are you just going to be selecting 2 additional, or are you thinking of replacing, which is what my question
Well, we're
was.
gonna go through the list of all the people that are up and the positions that we are able to, switch out if we choose. But I can tell you that I'm gonna be fair. That's
Well,
what I
we
can
just
tell
want you
you.
to also
And I spoke with
consider,
Ms. Ross, and I
Now, I know you
understand your concerns about the treasurer, and I think it's valid, and I will definitely take that into
that's what I was just going to ask, for all committee people to please take that into
I understand.
Are
consideration.
they gonna be, 2 people that you are not interested, that are on there now, that you
Are they gonna be interviewed?
Are they gonna be interviewed?
I think we were interviewing 4 people.
They're on the list.
I think we were interviewing 4
Karen-
people
Karen Conner
for
and-
2 spots. Is that correct? How many people do we have for the library board that were coming next week for the interviews?
The library board was 5. You were appointing 2, taking 2 off.
No, just, yeah,
So if
just,
you're expanding it to 5 and
To 7?
to 7, and only 4 people applied, they should all get on. We're talking about volunteers here. It's not a political game,
so,
and that's what it turned into.
Liz, how many people,
So are
do
Eddie
you have
and
scheduled?
Karen being interviewed?
How many people
I don't have.
for,
We have Eddie, we don't have Karen on the
Right,
list.
I
Did she
mean-
send an email?
I can add them to the list if you want.
Well, she's currently on, I know she'd like to be
It's just sad.
Yeah, well, we got emails.
You have a
from all the
guy
people
on
that
here
wish
who
to
didn't
stay on.
attend the last 8 meetings, and you're not throwing him off.
Yeah, reach out to him.
So
So you
the
didn't
2
even
people
do
from the
your
list
checking.
will be added and the 2
This
current
is sad.
people.
Well, the one, yes,
We're gonna
one
work
was, the
together.
treasurer was already on the list.
Okay, and then Karen was, I thought.
Karen wasn't
Yeah.
because
If
she
you
never
make-
sent the letter of intent that
She
she
probably
wanted
didn't
to stay
know,
on.
but
That's
we
why
can,
we reach out.
I can have her send you, tell it.
Liz will
She can
reach out
make
to
it-
her.
You reach out to
Yes,
her?
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I wanted to say, I'm sorry, there are no positions on the library board. It's just on the library board. There's 3 positions,
That's the treasurer.
president, treasurer, and secretary. That's all. I just wanted to let you know that. And if you want anybody to sit in and ask them questions or whatever, you have my number, you know?
Thank you.
All right.
You know, you said you were gonna work together, but you weren't, but that was right up the window. Anyone started.
I'm Rose from Forest Places.
Hi, how are you?
Point of concern, I normally, I had a work commitment, however, I couldn't get in the building, both doors are locked.
okay.
Thank you.
We got here so early.
Can we, make sure that's the release?
You were
Thank you.
You were here so early.
Hi, Bill Coleman, 58 Slosher Drive. I have 2 questions. Is this being recorded
Yes.
tonight?
It is, right, Bob?
All right, number 2. I sat on the zoning board for 15 years. And the mentality of the people who set and dictated the governing body, if it wasn't broken and they were doing a good job, there was no need to interview. They followed year after year after year on the board, and they did a good job. Now, it came to my attention, and it wasn't Ms. Boniface, because there's no secrets in the municipal building, I'll tell you that. That Matt Chawinski was actually considered to be thrown off of the zoning board. In my 50-plus years in construction, I have never met a man as intelligent and knowledgeable in construction as Matt Chawinski. To throw him off would be a travesty. And as far as I'm concerned, what you should do is the people that do a good job, do their homework, study, research, and everything else. You kiss their butt. These people are looking out for the interests of the town. And you let them do their jobs. To put people on so you can politically control what goes on in town and everything else. Listen, people know what's going on, and some people are reluctant to come because they're afraid of repercussions. But Gail, Nick, you're the new leaders, you're sitting in those chairs, do the right thing. Don't follow, and don't be told.
Well, thank you, but I don't need to be told that, first of all. And
But see,
second of all,
and this is it.
well, I don't need to be
You
told
get very defensive, and you know what I'm talking about.
No, I am defensive.
Yeah.
Because I don't
Yeah.
need to be told that, to my integrity.
I'm
gonna
not
do what
talking
I-
about
I'm
your
gonna do what I-
integrity. I'm talking
I'm
about
gonna do what I think is right, Bob.
how people can manipulate certain people on the board.
Well, thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, and it was evident this past summer, how people can be manipulated. All right, but you got qualified people that are doing a great job in town, and to even consider throwing them off is a travesty to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, can I have a motion to close? the public portion for the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second? Second. All in favor? Any any opposed? All right, we're gonna have Mr. Beneke come up, he's our economist, to explain the pilot program. Mr. Beneke, thank you so much for coming tonight. As you know, this is new for the town of Rochelle Park, so we want to make sure that we have a thorough explanation of what a pilot program is and how it may affect properties in town, or more particular, 120 West Passaic Street.
If I may, Mayor, just before Mr. Beneke starts, just so everyone is aware, Mr. Beneke was retained by the Township Committee as a consultant to advise us on the financial agreement, pilot agreement with the properties that are potential redevelopment sites. He was not retained by the developer. He was an independent professional opinion that we retained to give us advice. The payment is coming from the developer, from their escrows, but in any event, he's been retained by us. So that's why he's here. He's not here to push forward any particular position, but to independently evaluate the proposal and also to explain to the committee, as well as members of the public, what a pilot is all about. And I think that's probably where it will start after he gives his credentials.
Okay. Great. Do I need to speak into a microphone?
Yeah.
Sure. All right, we're just gonna. Want me to take it off the wire? How about this? There we go. That better?
You guys hear him back there? Oh, wait. Everyone keeps speaking into the microphone, no systems. Hold on.
Yeah, we're good.
Do we have firemen nearby?
Give it a test.
Give it a test. Doesn't sound good.
Yeah, there you go.
Need a minute to start. Okay, my name is Bob Beneke, B-E-N-E-C-K-E. The name of the firm is Beneke Economics. We're out of the Riverdale, Pompton Lakes area. Done this for about 40 years. We have 6 professionals in the firm. For better or worse believe, I've written 5 textbooks for Rutgers University in public finance, and also as a previous managing consultant at the Boston School of Planning. We've also written the state accounting system for the state of New Jersey. Every municipal budget, including the one that Mr. Davidson has outside his office and the clerk has, is a little column called it FCOA, Flexible Chart of Accounts. I also wrote that. We've probably written 150 to 200 redevelopment plans in the past 10 years, and probably in the neighborhood of 200 pilot analysis and 50 economic impact statements. My prime partner is Fred Solchik, professional planner, former Sussex County Planning Director, former Middletown Township Planning Director, one of the deans, together with Susan Rule, Richard Price, and a few others, one of the deans of professional planning in the state of New Jersey. We have 2 PhDs, one from Princeton Economics, one from the University of California Statistics. We have a financial analyst who does a lot of the grunt work, as I call it. And we also have a former municipal manager to round out our professional team, six folks. I can go on and on, but I won't bore you with the remainder of it. I am a certified municipal finance officer in the state of New Jersey, and we'll leave it at that for now. If you have any questions on any of that, I'm glad to answer. I'm bored with all the details. So, payment in lieu taxes are divided into 2 general categories in New Jersey. The first are limited dividend affordable housing, New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency types of tax programs that are linked to low-income housing tax credits. They are generally sponsored up to the level of 6.28% of what's called gross sheltered rents, so that low-income housing tax credits can be applied to housing projects. That category of pilots is generally reserved for 100% inclusionary housing developments, but not exclusively. There could be for other long-term housing tax credits and low-income housing tax credits that are applicable through the New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency. They just went through a complete overhaul of the regulations for that program last year. And while it's not applicable here, it's good to know that that is in the backdrop in every municipality, so that there is this other program out there that sometimes gets conflated what we're talking about tonight. There's a long-term tax exemption law. That's the other type of pilot. Pilots paying a little tax. Very scant mention of pilots in the statute. They're not actually annual service charges. ASC is not pilots, although it is a payment in lieu tax program. There's two basic types of payment in lieu tax programs. One is the 2% of total project cost basis, which gives you a floor based upon the total project cost or the total investment in the project. The other is 10% of annual gross revenues, which is a floor. 10% of annual gross revenues off the top after your vacancies. You get 10%, and that's your minimum pilot they can pay. There's some nuances there, and we'll go deep diving into these rabbit holes, but there's a lot of nuances to either one. It's more of an art than a science, but the science is obviously the economics of a specific project. Each project has its own unique dynamic. Here we're talking about a multiple use or multi-use type of project, which includes residential, some retail, and of course the self-storage. We'll get to that in a second. With respect to the qualifications for a payment in lieu tax program, you have some things that the public doesn't realize, and sometimes it's good to go through it. One is that you need to have an urban renewal entity, which has been established at 120 Passaic Street. The urban renewal entity is a single purpose entity and a special purpose entity at the same time, which provides for the accounting and the building of the specific facility. In our proposal, just to go down the road a bit, we have proposed 3 special purpose entities for this specific project, matching up to each of their approved site plan components, residential, storage, and retail, if indeed those come to fruition. The reason for that is you account for them separately, different terms and conditions and different dynamics to each one of those projects financially. The second issue is that people don't realize that you have a limited dividend or limit on the profit. The limitation on the profit is 12%. That's 12% two ways. 12% on your total project cost, and more importantly, 12% on your total income from the year. It's an annual revenue-based profit limitation. Included in the profit limitation is your capital expenses that are either amortized through a debt or amortized through a project amortization, which matches up with the schedule of the pilot. If I'm going too fast, I will repeat myself ad nauseum so that you guys will want to kick me out at some point. So that's the two issues that people don't realize, is that you have this limited dividend, limit profit concept in the statute. It's pretty strict. You also have the concept of this urban renewal entity, or URE, in the statute. The third issue that comes up all the time, is that you'll need someone to certify at the end of the project, an architect or a qualified engineer, the total project cost. That's important because that triggers your pilot if it's a 2% total project cost based project, or if you're looking at the examination of the profit. In addition, after the first full fiscal year that you're operating in, you also need an audit to test those statutory schemes. And the audit has to be done under GAAP principles, and it cannot be done by an RMA, it must be done by a CPA, it must be done by someone other than the municipal auditor. So it's subject to a independent third-party audit.
It should be for me.
I didn't hear that. Sorry. So the broad strokes are, there's these limitations in the statute that folks don't realize. And here's the kicker. And we'll go through this a lot, and I mentioned this in the report, and I'll get to the report in a second. there's a minimum annual service charge, and the minimum annual service charge in New Jersey is last year's taxes. Here, we have a unique circumstance. Many times, for example, we're dealing with one this morning in the town of Passaic County, where there was a tax appeal, and we're trying to figure out what was the best approach to the tax appeal being effectuated as part of the minimum annual service charge, last year's taxes. Here you have demolition of buildings that reduce the approximate taxes coming up. What we're recommending is the minimum annual service charge, approximately $255,000, be maintained as go forward, similar to what the statutory scheme would be for the prior year taxes. So there's no dispute between the applicant, redeveloper, and the township with respect to the minimum annual service charge. So what most people don't realize is that the minimum annual service charge, which is last year's taxes, and we have this caveat for this demolition issue, is the floor of your payment tax program. You're not going to give an abatement off of that. A lot of people in New York, and a lot of developers that come from New York, get this abatement concept because in New York State, and New York City, you can actually have an abatement from the current taxes. You can't have that in New Jersey.
And Bob, just if I may, just to
Sure.
be clear, that minimum, that floor of 250,
55,000.
that's the pre-demolition.
That's correct. That's the
Okay, just want to make sure everybody
pre-demolition.
understands.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that, going through the deed and going through the demolition certificates. You know, it's clear that you need to come up with the $254,851 for last year as your minimum annual service charge for thereabouts. The demolition then would reduce the value and reduce the tax bill, and we have some estimated tax bills we want to do that.
So the total tax revenue from the site can go no lower than
Correct.
200, whatever that number was,
Correct.
the pre-demolition cost, tax revenue.
And what we would do is we would apportion between the three UREs, but until the third URE or second or the third URE is up and running, we would attach it to the first URE and make sure that, okay, if the redeveloper owns the interest in the three common UREs or the three UREs, we would just make sure that that 255 is made whole to the township, to one of the UREs, with the master of the first URE.
Even before completion of the other two?
Absolutely.
What if the 3 years split up in any way?
It doesn't matter. You'd still you would designate one to be the lead, and then the other two would follow, and we would allow, under the financial agreement, either on a square foot basis, or on a pre-negotiated basis, or on an annual gross revenue distribution basis, or proportional basis, we would carve up to $255,000. We sort of leave it up to them, but as long as they're guaranteed $255,000, that's sort of our end game, is to make sure that we don't lose any money, right? And that's the intent of the statute. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that, and I never understood why, and when we write our articles for either the Blouson School or other venues, we really stress that, and a lot of people don't stress that. And there's a lot of reasons why I would presume, and I don't want to speculate, but the bottom line is that you don't lose any money, you don't lose any revenue. The second thing that people don't realize, and it's not, again, spoken of, is that you do have the 12% profit limitation. Now, 12% sounds a lot. We go to savings bank, we get 1%, we get 0.5%, we get 3% if we enter into the equity markets, we may get 5, 6, 7%. But 12% in a risk-based volatile market where you have a debt service component where you're going to the bank is not a market return. A market return is 15 to 17% or better because you are dealing with market risk. If, for example, your rents, and we take 5 years to ramp up the storage units, for example, to get to full rental, which is very typical in a storage unit scenario. If that market were to close up, you're taking the risk of that market being closed up. If the rents we're using for residential, for market rents, are about $36 a square foot. 5 years ago, that may have been on the high side, but in this area, they've gone pierced through 32, pierced through 34, and it seems like $36 a square foot, between $2,400 and $2,600 is where the rental market is ending up. If that rental market were to subside, or to have the demand not be there, there's some sub-markets where demand is beginning to soften throughout the state, then you would have a problem as well. So these risk factors are added to your market interest rate. Your market interest rate on a short-term basis is 4 to 4.5%. That's also your cap rate. On a long-term rate, it's 5.5 to 6%. You then would add these components to it, and you end up somewhere around 14, 15, 16% rate. So the 12% profit rate in the statute is not as high as it may appear to a household or a personal investor. So that's some of the broad strokes. Again, 2 buckets, housing for low-income housing, and then long-term tax exemption. Within long-term tax exemption, you have 2% total project cost, you have 10% of annual gross revenues. You could go down some other rabbit holes, and again, those are bases. Those are your floors, the 2% total project cost, or your 10% of annual gross revenues. You say to yourself, well, what's the magic of the 2%? About 30 years ago, 1992, the legislature and some commissions came up with an average tax rate in the state. The average tax rate in the state at the time on an equalized basis was 2.5%. So they picked 2% on your investment as your targeted tax rate. That's where you get the 2% from. The 10% is an arbitrary number, but it is off the top. So you're taking profit off the top from the developer or redeveloper in the investment. The only way to receive a pilot in New Jersey, except for the long-term New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency limited dividend pilots, is through a redevelopment area or an urban enterprise zone. You do not need an area needed redevelopment when you have an urban enterprise zone to receive a pilot. So you do have an annual requirement that you look at this from an audited perspective, and it must be in area in need of redevelopment. But that area needs redevelopment is 10%. We have a redevelopment plan here. You have a site plan. I referenced the site plan from Stonefield Engineering. And if the site plan isn't finally approved, that's all better, because we can then massage the two if we need to. The report I did is dated February 29, 2019. In the end of the report, I mentioned that the final report would come out on or about March 1st. We typically like to scrub the data. We like to speak to council. We like to speak to the mayor, of course, the administrator, council committee in this case, and get your feedback. We would then go back in, scrub it up, cosmetically, answer any questions, review anything, take the draft stamp off. We keep the November 29th date on it, and we say final draft February 2nd, January 23rd, March 1st, whatever the date may be, and then release it to the public. That's sort of the way we work it. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I hope you do as well.
Just real quick.
Of course.
In your discussion about the draft report, I think you said February 29th, 2019, and I'm sure people are writing that down.
That's 2020.
Oh, yeah, it's November 29th, 2019 draft.
Right, this is that draft report, and then we said March on or about March 1st, 2020. Wouldn't be the final report date, just figuring we'd give it with the holidays and everything a couple of extra months. Again, a lot of this is art, not science, although it's science-based, it's also law-based. Keep in mind that we really don't suffer gotchas very well. We're here in good faith. We're here in peace. We don't really want to, get into any adversarial positions. We're not here to be mean. We're not here to try to tell you what to do. We're just here to call balls and strikes, and we act very respectful to people. So, the gotchas we kind of don't deal with very well. But we will answer any and all questions. The project components we first deal with figure 1. That's what we're dealing with respect to the site plan. There's 3 properties totaling 7.75 acres. It's on page 1 of the report. We then go through, in that report, our methodology for computing the financial.
Very low.
We go through the methodology of determining whether or not the project is financially viable or financially investable, if you will. Sure.
Ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
When this pilot agreement is signed, is it lock, stock, and barrel for the term? Is there any renegotiating? any renegotiating during the term?
Well, what we did, if you want to jump to that, the short answer is yes. What we did, and we do this a lot recently. On page 10, you'll see the box where it says proposed pilot change stages. This is not consistent with the application by the redeveloper. We actually improved and asked for, through this report, through our work, a better pilot, if you will. If in year 12, after the conclusion of year 11, our projections in our fiscal plan, which will be cemented in the final report, of course, we would then speak with the applicant. If they exceed 120% of our projections after 11 years, then the pilot would increase to 12%. So that is an automatic trigger of a renegotiation that year. In addition, the statute has phases of implementation, if you will, or phase in, if you will, of full taxation. After the 15th full year, you have to have 20% of regular taxes. And then the statute goes wild with language. But essentially, within the next 5 years, you have to have 40%. Within the next 5 years after that, you have to have 60%. Within the next 5 years after that, you have to have 80%. It's complicated reading of the law. That said, what we do typically, and we did in this case, or recommended in this case, in year 20, you have all that other gobbledygook. In year 20, you pay everything at 80% of otherwise applicable taxes, or the applicable percentage, whichever is greater.
That would be on all three?
All three. On the two non-residential, because you have the affordable housing piece on the residential, then after 25 years, you terminate.
And it's 30 on the residential?
It's 30 on the residential to match up generally with your affordable housing obligation. Your deed restriction on the 2040.
That's why it's 30 and not 25.
And the statute allows you 30 years. The statute actually was modified last August to allow for a 50-year pilot. And there's a 50 years from the execution of the financial agreement. 30 years still a pilot, 35-year shoulder period for affordable housing. But the reason for the 50 years is, in this case, if you had the three components and you only had one URA, the third URA, let's say the retail, could be done in year 12. If you had 30 years, it'd be 42 years from now, 42 years from the execution of the agreement. So the statute allows you to go out to 50 years in terms of the effectiveness of the date of the agreement to the end of the term of the pilot, even though the pilot can still only be 30 to 35 years. So to answer your question, we've built in this mechanism, but nothing else would be allowed to be renegotiated unless there's a specific term in the financial agreement. Keep in mind that the redevelopment agreement is a condition to be satisfied within the financial agreement, and perhaps vice versa, depending upon how you link it. But the redevelopment agreement will be exhausted, terminated, or otherwise satisfied within the first 5-10 years tops. The financial agreement will then survive that. And sometimes with respect to core obligation, 2.5% fee, transmittals and payments, and things of that nature. Maybe you have a parking fee, maybe you have some other things that need to be done in town, maybe a tennis court 15 years from now, you want to see that in the financial agreement, because the redevelopment agreement will probably have been satisfied. So that, I think that answers your question.
One more question. If the property is sold, does this pilot agreement go with the property?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does. You can build in certain restrictions, you can build in a transfer fee. And in a Rochelle Park, we probably wouldn't recommend a transfer fee per se, but you could at that time review it. You want to have the ability to transfer the property for financing purposes. It'll be very difficult to have the redeveloper achieve financing with restrictions on their ability to transfer the property. Going through this a little bit more, we have the methodology for you. We talked about the debt service and the 12% return. What we did, and we talk in closed session about some of the things that we did with the pilot application, because I don't want to get into a give and take with respect to the redeveloper with you. What we did is we came up with our building volume off of the site plan. We came up with our rentable square foot estimates. We also used the planning board resolutions to the degree possible. We know that there's 136 market units, 24 affordable units. We estimated the sizes. We came down again with the rents on the $36 square foot side on average. Again, I must say it's on average. I must say there are estimates and they're based upon current market conditions. And like anything, they are subject to change. And rents are going up in this area 1% and 2% a year. Construction costs are going up 4 to 6%. So these projects are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. At the same time, there is money to be made because of the land costs and because the entitlements are pretty smoothly obtained in a redevelopment area, assuming that the redevelopment plan has been adopted. Figure 4 and figure 5, which are on page 5, are your estimated gross square feet and your other data for the storage facility and for your rent scenario for your retail traditional. It should be noted that the application for the pilot indicates that there'd be a convenience store potentially with gas station. I have, questioned that, and I'll just leave it up to the town to deal with it. With respect to figure 6, that's your fiscal plan. We're gonna scrub some of these numbers and update them as we've gone through the end of the year.
No, that was not,
That was the only place I read that, in your report.
Well, it's in their
I didn't read it in
application.
anything
Yeah,
else.
it's in their application.
it was not approved that way.
Okay, but it's in their application.
Just because I know that's a reason for concern
Mhm.
for a number of
It's a
people.
small retail pad, and they can't be self-storage, and then the residential.
Right, and I scored it at that. I scored it 8,000 square feet, $30 a square foot.
I don't know why they meant, that was not.
That's in the, that's
That's
in there.
good, but I know it was in there, so you're right to mention.
Yeah, I have to just go on what they've applied for, but the approval is for approximately 8,000 square feet of retail as a pad. Tops, you get $30 a square foot, and tops from that pilot before would be $22,800 maximum. The figure 6, again, we'll go into closed session as to why I did this, but we did a full development budget for them. It's conceptual budget. The them is the redeveloper. I included the summary pro forma at the bottom. The project yield is approximately 5.6%, or 1/2 of the applicable statutory profit limitation. We then have the figure 7 gives us our total project revenue, and then figure 8 gives us our total pilot. Currently, you're receiving $255,000, as I mentioned before. Municipal, school, and county are carved up appropriately and proportionally. And then the pilot would be $636,901. You would leave in place the school, leave in place the county, and then the municipality would get the remainder, if that's what you so choose. So $477,000 will go to the municipality. 128,000 will continue to go to the schools, and the county would receive 31,045, the prior amount plus 5% of the new pilot. We then go into, because it's typically an issue, we go into the school-age children. Yep, go ahead.
So you're saying that, much like you have a score on the collection of taxes on this property, and the municipality would not be adversely affected.
Right.
The school and the county would also not be adversely affected at current amounts.
Schools are never affected by a pilot.
Well,
They're never affected by a pilot. There's no proof that it's scientific that a school is not affected by a pilot. A school can't be affected by a pilot. I use in the example in the report, if half of the township of Rochelle Park were to be considered a redevelopment area tomorrow and under a pilot, the school board still gets its $12 million. If 3/4 of the town went on a pilot basis tomorrow, the school board still gets its $12 million, period, end of story. If there's new students in the school, they add it to their tax levy cap, and guess what? They get $13 million. Period, end of story. They do not lose any revenue. Now, there's a town that adjoins Rochelle Park, and we just went through this exercise in December. And I said, I'll tell you what, you take your amount from your pilot and force the school board not to use that money except to reduce taxes. Because what ends up happening, just like with Texas County Administrator, I told him this last week, the 5% is funding money to the county. they're gonna get this extra $22,000, they're not gonna reduce taxes. They're gonna go and spend it. The school board is not gonna take the money and reduce taxes. What are they gonna do? They're gonna go and spend it. Make them reduce taxes if they give them any money. Because that's the same effect as putting the pilot into Mr. Davidson's budget. You reduce the taxes. There's no way, and hear me loud and clear, there is no way that that Board of Education will get any less or any more with or without a pilot. As a matter of fact, you guarantee 100% of their tax payments through your reserve fund collected taxes, which was $220,000 that Mr. Davidson carries in his budget. You guarantee their cash flow, even though you collect 98%, you guarantee 100%. It's that firm. Now, will they have an additional cost? Sure they will. No question about it. Is it an average cost basis? Absolutely not. It's marginal cost basis. So in other words, when a school board adjoining town reduces their number of students by 167 pupils, how much do you think the school board budget goes down? Went up 5.4%. There's nothing, when the school population goes up and down, the school budget doesn't go up and down. It goes up or down based upon the cost quotient, not based upon the number of students, except for what we call the lumpy factor. The lumpy factor is once a small district hits the maximum capacity of all their facilities, they may have to build a new facility. And that's where the cost goes up. And that's it. And the audience in the back, if they're talking about it, it's absolutely provable. There is no way that the school board loses a single cent. The school board sets their levy, and you pay their levy at 100%, and you carry a reserve for collected taxes in their budget. Period. End of story. That's what happens. Now here you're going to have 25 extra students, 16 from the COA units, and approximately 9 or so from the market rate units. Notice, 24 or so COA units, affordable housing units, will end up generating 16 students. Okay? The reason for that is the 3 bedrooms, and the reason for that is the family orientation of affordable housing. I personally, professionally think that's a good thing, because affordable housing, there's a great need for that. We all can't afford $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes, $380,000 homes, whatever they are. We can't all afford $2,600 a rent. On the other hand, the market rate units will probably have less than the 9 that we estimate. And again, we use 2 record studies as well as the census population extrapolation data to get those numbers. So, in effect, we have 25 additional students. Now you say to yourself, okay, the average tax levy per child or per student is approximately $20,000 here. Now I added in, I noticed you had an orders report up, that's fine. You have to add in 120 students that go to Hackensack High School to that number. That brings it down to 1930. That was in our report. We looked at both the Hackensack Second District data as well as the Rochelle Park data.
What'd you average there?
Well, I actually took the total tax levy because the tuition shows up in your tax levy and divided by the 622. If I have it right, 502 plus 120. That's the average cost. That's not the marginal cost. If I have a classroom with 22 students and a house across from me has a cave in, they sell it. 2 students move in, go to school. How much do you think the school board's going to change their budget? They're going to change it by $40,000? Going to change it by nothing. Maybe some pencils, maybe some pens, maybe some cafeteria. The cost is going to go up. No question about it. But we estimate about $4,000 a kid. That's marginal cost. Until you get to a lumpy factor. The lumpy factor is that you then have to have facilities. Now, that's interesting in New Jersey. Because generally in type 2 school districts, you're a school district because you have an elected board. In type 2 school districts, you generally need a referendum to increase your school capacity. Generally, 99% of the time you need a referendum. So that means that you have to have the voters approve the capacity issue. So what ends up happening is you get some overcrowding conditions. Here you probably won't have overcrowding conditions because we looked at the school district long-range facilities plan. It seems like you have sufficient capacity, at least in the K-8. Which means that our $4,000 per student is probably on the high side, but probably will hold. The question then comes into how many exact high school students will be sent to Hackensack High School at their tuition rate. That's unknown. It's unlikely that a lot of high school students will be here, but don't forget, we have $127,000 to cover everything. We're estimating 25 new students, $4,000 a kid, it's $100,000. An extra $27,000 to quote unquote play with. Not a lot, but you have it. If after time you find that the costs are up, then you may want to revisit it. I don't think you're going to though. And do not forget that when the school board sets their tax levy, you pay it 100%, that's it. And they have a cap adjustment for the additional students. So whatever their school tax levy is their school tax levy. They don't lose a dollar because of a pilot, period, and the story is proved. They do not lose $1. Costs go up, that's different. And if you were to give them $1 a pilot, what I suggest that you do is make sure it goes directly to the tax levy reduction on their budget lines. You know, that little blue and white chart that they have on that budget line, tax levy reduction from pilot. Otherwise, what they're going to do is they're going to take that dollar and they're going to have it, what I used in Essex County is the word funny money. They're just going to spend it. It's going to be additional spend. It's not going to go like you guys are going to do and gals. You guys and gals are going to reduce your taxes. You have to make sure they do. So, they have a 6% return on a 12% statutory allowance. They have asked for a 30-year pilot for all three components, 10%. They have justified that based upon a return that's similar to ours. Their return is a little bit lower, 4%, and then we'll get into some of the back and forth in closed session because I don't want to, they're not here, and I want to go through some of the dynamic of that with you. We've then recommended that that's fine for 10 years, but then for year 11 to year 30, the pilot floor goes to 11%. And then, if our estimate today, 11 years from now, is off by 120%, goes to 12% instead of 11%. It's on page 10. Year 20 through year 30, all the pilots go to either 11% or the 12% if our trigger is exceeded or amount is exceeded, or 80% of regular taxes, and then year 26, the storage and the retail pilot included. Keep in mind that we recommend most pilots in New Jersey be 22 to 25 years. Why? You need 2 years for stabilization of most projects. Stabilization means site plan approval, CDs, construction drawings being delivered, and a building permit being pulled. 2 years after that, you should start to see lease up of some sort. The first 10 years after that, you have permanent financing, and you have another tranche of permanent financing. It's 22 years. After that 22 to 25 year period, depending upon how long it takes to lease up, the project is basically fully financed, and everybody knows what they've got. They've recovered their initial investment, with one caveat: affordable housing. Affordable housing here is costing them in our estimate, $209,000 a unit. They're recovering $144,000 from the co rent, so the affordable housing rents over time. That's a deficiency of about $1.6 billion in current 2019-2020 dollars. That deficiency needs to be made up for the 30-year period that they have, and that's why we're recommending the 30-year period for residential, which marries and matches their proposal. But again, we're saying 80% of regular taxes for the apartments, regardless, or the 11 or the 12% if their numbers really run up. So that's our proposal, and again, that's on page 10. We are recommending 3 UREs. It could be 1 URE first, and then we could spin off the 2. I would recommend only 1 financial agreement, or we could do 3. But here, since it's your first shot, first time off the bat, I would recommend the 1 financial agreement and then the ability to spin off the other 2 or shed them as you go.
That first URE, the 255 would apply? Is that once a CO is issued, or?
Yeah, you would have a master URE, or the first URE if you want, and that one, the 255 would apply. And then if you take,
when does it start?
there was, that 255 would stay forever. And once you're,
Even before that,
oh yeah,
that building's done?
yeah, that's the current taxes on the property. It stays as is. Then as you start to rent, and rent clicks by $260,000, then the pilot kicks in. And then you give them what's called a land credit, because the total pilot's gonna be $625,000. The land credit is $255,000, and then the other $427,000, whatever, goes to the municipality. And you do with it what you may. And what ends up happening many times is you take that $400,000 and you pay for special debt for the firehouse, stream improvements, tennis courts, recreation facilities, and the like. You can actually pledge that revenue within your budget to pay for these improvements, or you can simply use this general revenue to reduce taxes. Your choice, your call. Carney gives 5% extra to the school board, and that's been a struggle. Other towns have shied away from it. In the original statute, it was interesting. If you go back to the original script of the statute, Governor McGreevy actually did a line item veto, because believe it or not, the county was supposed to get 10%. And he line item vetoed it, turned it into 5%. And the reason being, it's the same thing with the county. Their tax levy is a residual tax levy, just like the school board is guaranteed by the municipality. So this county sets their tax levy, you give them their money. You collect 98% or whatever your percentage is, and you give them 100%. When you have a tax appeal, how much do you give out? You give out 100% out tax appeal. Right now, we're not in good tax appeal times, we're in good tax appeal times for us, right, in the municipal side. But in bad times, when the market goes down, people appeal their assessments, you give back 100% of the money. Guess what? You've given the school board and the county their 50, 55, 60%, whatever it is. And you're sitting there holding the bag. You can't recover that money. You're shaking your head. Yeah, it's a big problem. You can't recover that money from the school board and the county. You can't recover your reserve fund collected taxes from the school board and the county. You can never do that. People don't realize that if they go into your budget, they go to sheet 29. Well, what? $220,000 reserve fund collected taxes. Doesn't go to you. A little bit does. Doesn't really go to you. Goes to the county and school board. School board members really love me when I tell them this, you know. But it's the God's honest truth, and it's absolutely true.
You in the audience.
Don't care. It's the God's honest truth, and it's absolutely true. That's not to say that their costs don't go up. Their costs do go up. They also recover in the tax law. Does the tax rate go up? Sure, because their costs are going up. I really love when school board members come and start talking about how it's unfortunate that their tax rates go up. In normal times, do they talk about that here? No. Okay. No Board of Education, New Jersey is worried about their tax levy and rate year after year after year after year. They're worried about it in these times because they want that extra $150,000 for funding. That's it.
I just want to go back to page.
Sure. Page 10? Sure.
No, it wasn't page 7. So the total numbers that we're looking at is 636,901, 477, that's minus the land of the 255?
No, that's included. That's included. That's the gross numbers across the bottom.
The school is 127, 694, 3185 is for the county.
Correct.
And in your opinion, this is a stable number to budget with?
Oh, yeah, sure. Most of our projections are on the low side.
But this is until it takes effect. Right now, we're just getting the minimum. Yeah.
Which is the same amount
That we're getting now.
that you're getting now prior to demolition. And must, you know, from Joe's perspective and the mayor's and Mr. Davidson, we are making sure that as part of demolition, that is part of our financial. That will be the minimum annual service charge.
Yeah, that's not, if I can just interject, I was going to mention that because when we say right now, for the current year, we will not be getting $255,000 because now it's been reassessed as vacant land. So it's really going to result in an increase if it is negotiated out this way. It'll result in an increase in tax revenue for the years, even during construction, before they post COs and they finish. So that can be done.
As soon as the pilot is signed,
No, no, you're talking before that, you're talking you're talking above 255?
No. In other words, right now, 2020, in all likelihood, we're not gonna receive $254,000 because it had to be reassessed to the buildings. So let's assume we finalize the financial agreement right now, that would immediately step up to 255, correct?
Right, what would end up happening is your tax bill hypothetically would read 150,000, and then you would give them a pilot bill for an extra $105,000. And then you would carve it up based upon the current proportion school, county, municipal. And you would just go along on that track until they start to have their revenues come in, and then they pay the pilot on top.
Can I,
Yes.
all right, so full build out of this project, what's the estimated value?
It's $43 million is the estimated cost.
Estimated cost, but once you, I mean, cost doesn't always relate to value. What do you think the estimated?
Probably $60 million.
Okay. And if we're comparing a pilot to $60 million worth of.
Doesn't get built. If the preemptive portion doesn't get built, they walk away.
Right, but let's just say we're talking about value, and the pilot's here, we're looking at the pilot, what's the tax value of a $60 million building, what are we?
Let's talk $1.5 million. It doesn't get built, because your 5.6% return turns into something like a 0.5% return. That's just wrong. And, you know, and again, that's your choice, right? Your choice is, you know, reject it, and then their capital investment at $43 million can't flow. That $60 million of value doesn't happen. And more importantly, keep in mind that you're going to have that going from 10% to 11%, not too many years after. 120% is a nice prophylactic against the up market. You never have a down market because you never can really go down. I mean, I guess you put it to the economy totally greater. And also, you have 80% of applicable value or applicable taxes in year 20. So you're protected on that. So it's really a hedge for the next decade that you're going to get 650,000 instead of 1.5 million. But over the long run, you're going to satisfy piece of your code requirement. I don't know about your unmet need, your RDP. We weren't asked to look at that, but I assume that that's a big portion. And the other part is you're bringing in some jobs, a nice turnaround of an area, and 7.75 acres that's going to be usable. So that's the positive side. The negative side is if the markets really get hot and turn around, and if New Jersey can get its property tax system under control, maybe it could get an investor to come in and invest $42 million in 10 years. That's what your hedge is against, and turn it into $60 million.
That's always the unknown factor in this, and we talked about before. If a financial agreement like this is rejected by, you can't negotiate the terms, we're not comfortable with it, and it doesn't work out. The question is what happens with that project? Does it get built or not? And, you know, according to the analysis, it wouldn't make sense to build it. Who knows if they would or they wouldn't? I mean, only they would know that, but.
They need to walk at this proposal. This proposal is a strong proposal for it.
This is more, this proposal is more, as I've said, there's a spectrum of different pilot agreement. This is more on our side, our end, than theirs, and this may not fly. They may just say, we can't do that, we can't afford it. So. Leave the question.
It's just the fact that they started building the cube before this excluded in any way. The plans, I think the plans for the cube are already.
As long as they receive their pilot, they submit their pilot application prior to having their first building permit. Okay. They submitted their pilot application in April.
When did they get their first building permit?
They get their, actually the permit just until last month, I think, when they first started doing footings.
So they have their application, they have a police foundation permit now?
Yeah, they have the foundation.
Do they have any other permit?
I believe at this particular point in time, no, only because they wanted to see what was happening. They couldn't
Well,
really.
that's right, they can't really.
They can't move forward without it.
They can't really move forward without it, and The application was dated April 29th. We received it on November 7th. We were told to turn this around really quickly. And Joe and Chris, both, did this, was really pressing us. We got it out. And I think that their ask is a typical ask, is the statutory floor, and this increases it pretty significantly in favor of the borough or township.
So your final agreement, once it's cleaned up and after we have some discussions tonight, that will be the document on which we base a proposal to develop.
That's correct.
I mean, just so that everybody understands.
Yeah, I mean, there's some data points I'd like to see them return with, if we go into closed session, I can talk to you about that. We've talked about it briefly. I'd like to see them give us a couple of data points just for verification, just to make sure the file is complete. But, you know, and then if somebody has to get back to them, I'm not gonna do it unless you want me to. Tell them that, hey, you know, put it with the follow-up business, if that's your desire, you know. That's in their application. You know, I don't know, I think law was actually mentioned, but it's certainly the convenience with gasoline pumps.
I know that the public's anxious to see some of the documents that we're looking at. What, would we wait until?
Well, I think it has to be finalized before it becomes a document that we feel comfortable releasing, because it is a document that's going to be based, our negotiations will be based on it. As far as the application, I have no problem with that. I mean, they submitted that, that's, but this will be done, you know. I mean, it's all laid out in your discussion tonight anyway. It's
But
just
we
a
don't
matter
want
of-
to show our hand.
Right, and we have to, and there's some financial aspects of it
Yes.
that would weigh in on our, or affect our negotiation with them that we need to discuss. That would really be appropriate to talk about in public, because they may be sitting out there, who knows, you know, I don't know who's here, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can you, I mean, we're not gonna go into close now, right?
No, I want to open to the public.
Right, but are we keeping our experts here until we go into close later on? Or are we going to ask for possibly a list of the requests, and then we can formalize it in some type of motion? Or is even the stuff that you're gonna ask for, is that something that we have to make public? Do you know what the points you're looking for?
Now, we haven't discussed in detail, just generally.
Are there things that you've asked for in other municipalities when you've done?
I'd really rather not answer that question unless it was in closed session.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to prejudice the process.
Can you guys stick around? I'd hate to have you.
Yeah, 11, 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Is there any way we can do this on the 14th? Just a quick question.
Well, look, let me be a little cautious about it, okay? The application that we received was plentiful in terms of data. But when you match up the planning board approvals and the application, there's a couple of data points that I took liberties with based upon the market. I want to go back to the redeveloper applicant and get those data points cleaned up, because the approvals by the planning board and the applications don't line up. And then I want to take my final report and give it to them and say, here's where our differences are, not only in my recommendation to increase the value of the pilot, but also in terms of how much it's going to cost to build this, that big of a difference, and some other issues related to that. They submitted an application that, as I put into my report, and I'm not criticizing, it's just an oversight, we all, have oversights, is undated. We know the date of it because we received it on a certain date, and it's logged in, but it's still undated. The mayor in the municipality has 60 days to respond or give his recommendation to the governing body. Now, that date is routinely extended, but keep in mind that that date has come and gone, and we're now dealing with it. So at some point within the next 60 days from now, because you have a completed application, you should respond to them that you're either A, considering it, B, rejecting it, or C, recommending to the council or committee that they move forward as the mayor.
Well, maybe an answer to your question, maybe it's even premature to, maybe we need to wait to get that additional data and revisit it. So maybe we don't have to conduct.
You don't really have to revisit it, I just have to revisit it to make sure that what, and I think I'm going to be pretty much spot on within a certain, very small percentage. But again, I took deliveries, I need to make sure that that application has river.
But before we have, when we have a final document, committee would have to authorize a proposal based on that document.
That's correct.
So are we in a position, we're probably not in a position to even do that yet because it's not final and there's information you need, right? So.
Right, I would take draft off of this, clean up some of the, some of the numbers or whatever we have to scrub out. And together with getting their data points, I mean, it can be done within the next 2, 3, 4 business days, that's for sure.
Maybe we better just have to close the order at the next meeting or something like that. Rather than
14th next week.
Obviously, it's a significant.
Or the numbers.
I don't wanna push.
I was gonna say,
I don't
go to
wanna
the
rush.
29th.
Let's go slow with this.
Yeah, I'll be here late, but I'll be here. I have a command performance in Verona at 7,
I'm
7:30.
sure we'll see you later.
And I'm sure you'll still be here, at 9, 9:30.
Wait, maybe that would be better, to do that, let's have a full picture. Mr. Beneke could answer questions from the public tonight.
Yes.
But I think it's a lot to digest and, rather than try to discuss things when we don't have all the components, I mean, it'll take time and we should take it at a.
Yeah, I mean,
slower
there's
rather than.
there's a lot to go through, I mean. we
And
did this
especially
for
if
a
you don't
living.
have the couple of data points.
Yeah, and there were definitely
That's
some,
the accuracy of it.
definitely some things in the application that were just not right, so. And maybe we ought to fix that first.
Any questions from the committee?
I think I got all of mine.
Motion open to the public? Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Anyone may, we also, Chris Dickus, Redevelopment Council, and John Barry, Township Planner, are both present, so if the questions go in their direction, they're here to answer them as well.
Please come on up.
I can speak first, you're here. Mr. Benke? Benke.
Yeah.
Please just state your name and.
Teresa Judge-Cordell. How are you? I speak for myself and not the board. Questions I have, concerns I have. Could you please explain to me what you mean by funny money?
Yeah, when you spend money that's intended to be, it's my term, not a term of science, term of art. When you spend money that's supposed to go to a taxpayer relief, and it's spent on another item.
So in other words, are you saying for the cost of running a school? Is that what you're saying?
No,
So what are you saying for funny money? I'd like to know the definition of what you're saying.
as I just said, the definition is when money is supposed to be reducing the tax levy and it goes to another purpose.
Okay, so what makes you think that the school is using it for another purpose? Other than
There's no
the
line that says,
supplies?
there's no line that says reduction of tax levy is going for another purpose.
Okay, so I'm personally going to say, I take offense to the word funny money, because I believe that from my own experience, I speak for myself and not the board, that the board works very hard to make sure that every line item is spent correctly and for the children of this district. We also have a contradiction on some of your numbers that you have here, because you don't include, from what I heard, maybe I'm wrong, but we have out-of-district placements, and that's quite a bit of money. Quite a bit of money that takes up about a budget itself.
That's included in there.
I have 31 out-of-district placements. I have 136 students at Hackensack High School and 506 at middle school from our last meeting.
They have 120 on their rolls at Hackensack.
Well, we have it on our rolls, and our agenda is 136.
They have
So
120.
we may have a difference with that.
They have 120, check it out with them. They have 120 on their.
So here's my question on this too. Now, So you're figuring in that, basically, you're giving 120, you're saying 127,000 would automatically always go to the school, is that what
As
you're
it is
saying?
now, yeah.
As it is now. How much went to the school from the taxes directly from the property last year?
$127,000.
Okay, if it should go up at any cost, it still stays at 127,000. Is
Of
there?
that property?
Correct.
Yeah, but it's irrelevant because you said your tax levy is 100% of your total cost.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but the tax levy itself, we are saying, we have an increase, say we have an increase, and we get an increase quite a bit. We have increase, decrease of students. Goes back and forth.
Right, not your budget constantly goes up.
Well, we work very hard to keep our budget in line, that's
But it
not.
constantly goes up depending upon the number of children is irrelevant.
Well, it's
constantly
also
goes
cost
up.
factors that make the budget go up too. Even daily cost factors, PSC&G and everything else.
So is
can make
Mr.
that.
Davidson's budget.
But
Everybody's.
everybody's budget could go up, I understand.
No,
So
yours goes
120
up every year,
Ours has gone up, yes.
every year,
How far back are you going?
12, 14 years.
Okay. So my question is, with this data that's being brought forward, has anybody reached out to the school or the school board?
For what purpose? You get 100% of your levy regardless.
Well, because the figures that you have, I believe, are
It
correct.
doesn't matter. If they're incorrect, it doesn't matter. They could be 800 students or 8 students, doesn't matter. You get your tax levy.
The 127, just
No,
from
you
that.
get billed $12 million regardless. If it goes up to 14, you get the $14 million.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. We get our tax levy that comes from the taxpayers of the town.
Absolutely.
Right. The taxpayers of the town for the 120 would give the amount of 127,000, is that
That's correct.
correct? Okay. So now, any of this fall back on the taxpayers at all with regards to school money that has to be, say, increased? Would it automatically go and spread out through the
If
residents?
the costs are increased beyond $127,000, sure.
Okay.
But you still get your money.
Well, we have to get our money because that's
Exactly.
voted on. But, funny money, I don't know where that means. You
I'll
have
tell
your
you what
own.
it means.
You
It
have
means
your
that
own.
if you get $150,000 at the school board to reduce taxes, and you don't show to reduce taxes, and you spend it on something, in my opinion, it's funny money.
In your opinion?
Yes, because it should go to tax reduction.
Well, I believe that we had, and I might be incorrect, but I believe there was $250,000 given back to the taxpayers from the budget that we've had. I think it's been presented before publicly about that. So maybe you'd like to talk to our BA about that.
No, how did you give $250,000?
Well, we have a tax relief of the $250,000 from what we took out of our budget for the tax relief. Did the taxes go up? Yes, they did go up.
Every year they did.
Well, we have cost expenditures too. I speak for myself, and again, I'm not speaking for the board. But what I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of recommended by New Jersey School Boards Association that I have recently read, that maybe the school board could speak with the town about this. I understand what you're saying in your research, I appreciate it. But I understand that maybe the school board or somebody from the board, the superintendent or even the business administrator, could be reached out about numbers and, is the 127 a solid number? Will it ever?
It's irrelevant, because you get 100% of your taxes that you need. It
Okay, so
doesn't
where
matter.
does, okay, so I understand what you're saying. It's irrelevant because you're saying it's 127,000.
No, it's because it's $12 million,
The $12 million also comes from residents of the town.
and also businesses,
Right.
absolutely, all your taxpayers. And if it goes up to 14 million, you will get that money.
But that's from taxpayers,
Correct.
but it's not extra to this 120.
No, but if
No.
that stays vacant and the demolished property comes off and we go down to 160,000, you lose money and the town loses 90,000 in total. And then if the tax appeal comes through, guess what? The Board of Education doesn't pay the tax appeal, Mr. Davidson does, 100%.
You mean-
And there's $220,000 in their budget for the reserve fund collected taxes to pay the Board of Education, 100% of your taxes.
Okay.
And you
So,
don't pay them that.
I believe Mr. Davidson is referring to the town would pick up that.
Of course.
Right.
You know, he
Okay.
prepares the
Unless
budget. He's obligated
Mr.
to
Davidson
prepare.
has that, to give away, but I just want to
I
clarify
wouldn't
that
be
statement.
here if I got that.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying about the increase. So that would stay the same, no matter, even the taxes for everybody else in town goes up for their school. This would always stay the same. For how many years? How many years are we talking?
20,
For 20 years,
well, no, 25 and 30.
25 and 30.
Just keep in mind, this is a real important point. The affordable housing component of this is approximately 24 units.
Okay.
So approximately 16 children are estimated to come out of them. That's a lot.
Okay.
From apartments. The state affordable housing protocols do not take into account the local service functions, whether it's schools, police, fire, no matter what. It's embedded in the system that we provide those services to promote affordable housing. That's their protocol. So the majority of those students are being generated for your district because of the affordable housing protocols that have been forced upon municipalities. I think rightly so, but that's just my personal.
That's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
Right.
Other people think not.
Uh-huh.
But 16 of those are statutorily embedded under the Fair Housing
I
Act.
understand.
And that's an important consideration.
That is an important consideration also for the township community.
Of course.
Right?
Very important.
So, clarify something for me. I believe you said we have enough room for the students that are there
The
now.
long-range facilities plan doesn't indicate any capacity issues. So
Where did you get the long-range facility plan?
On
may
the
I ask?
website.
From what year?
I believe it was, every district had to do it in 2012 or later.
Right.
So I believe it was 2014.
Well, we just haven't, that I'm gonna say, we have an updated one that maybe you want to probably look at
If it's
now.
on the website, great.
Because, that would probably go through, it has to be finished and go through. So I would look at those stats before, because I can tell you that we had to make a classroom from very small spaces. We are packed right now, and that is from the school. I don't speak for the board, I just know for a fact that we are very high capacity, and I can tell you that we're looking to somehow expand maybe. We're gonna look at phases to what we can do, because I don't believe that statement is actually true with the new long-range facility.
Right, I'm sure your VA could maybe speak to.
Yes, that's what I asked. Can somebody arrange our BA?
Yeah, we like that new plan, so it's
Yeah.
factored into the
Yeah.
revisions that are. Mr. Bennett-
I mean, I think that would be fair, because 2012, right, that's a
I
lot.
believe it was 2014, but every Board of Education had to have a new one, 2012 on.
And, right, but I believe we did a long range. But I think even the BA or maybe the superintendent could also help. Sir?
Yeah, no,
I was talking about the
we just wanna
VA
make sure.
speaking to Bob, that might be a good idea. so.
Is Bob?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think that, I don't speak for the school, that would be the decision of the superintendent. So somebody has to reach out to the superintendent and make that decision. But let's get the stats up to quo, as I'm going to say, and make sure that we have everything. And if this amount is the right amount for the school, that it's not levied on all the other taxpayers, and I'm speaking as a taxpayer. I've been in this town almost 60 years. Oh, I just said that out loud. Oh, well. Here we go.
On the record.
It's on the record,
At least
but,
almost.
hey, wait a minute. I'm stuck, okay. So I am a taxpayer for a long time. I don't want to see this, as I'm speaking as a taxpayer now, that the taxpayers take more of a brunt of, you were estimating 16 children, I think you said?
From the affordables.
From the affordables, okay. But there may be more. We don't know. There may be less, there may be
Probably
more.
not more. Well, the affordables are always a wild card.
Exactly.
Because they go up and down.
Right.
The market rate units we're estimating 9, that's probably on the high side. The 16 is probably a right number, because the study was done in 2018.
Okay.
And it was done on a granular basis. The prior 2006 study from the Boston School was not done on a granular basis. There was a lot of data that was extrapolated.
Okay.
The 2018 data was an actual granular basis study. That number is probably very close to being accurate. We also don't parse the difference between 4-year-olds who aren't in school, even pre-K,
Yes.
and 18-year-olds who are out of school. We include all of those in that 0.5. So there's some flexibility within the number. Keep in mind that the total pilot is approximately $650,000. We presuppose that the governing body is going to take their $427,000 and reduce taxes. If we were to give, or if they were to decide, like the county, give the Board of Education money, I would suggest to them strongly to put a line, reduction of the school tax levy, right under your total tax levy, and have a net tax levy number in your school budget, so your tax levy goes down. That's the only way I can justify it.
Well, I would suggest you speak to the administration at the school for that. That would be something that they would have to bring toward the board, okay? And you would have to have your town people also speak about that. Just, I know what you're saying about the line on that.
Well, that just goes to your logic, right? If you're saying that your costs are going up and you don't want the other taxpayers to pay for it, and yet they're getting their money and they're reducing taxes, and they have the $220,000 in the reserve fund for the taxes. And what ends up happening is that they're really reducing taxes. So if they were to quote unquote provide more than the $127,000, then the school board would have to do the same thing that the township would do and reduce taxes.
Well, we've got a line item to the tax. I understand.
Funny money.
Well, I really don't want to hear that word funny money again.
Well, I like to say it. So
I don't think
we're gonna have a
anybody
dispute with
on,
that.
in my opinion, anybody on the board of ed would ever spend money as a funny thing. I believe they spend it for the children of the district. So I appreciate, I understand what you're saying, but that's your comment. My comment is town council, if possible, to reach out maybe to.
I'm gonna have Mr. Rotolo reach out to the business administrator and connect them with them.
Yeah, and maybe the facts can be straightened out. Maybe.
The facts are very straight.
No.
Oh, yes, yes.
I have different, no, well, okay, I'm not gonna argue. Anyway, the short of it is, I'm just asking for that, even the long-range facility plan, because I'm gonna be honest with you, it is very tight in that school. There's a lot of things that, have to be done to make more room, and we still need more room there. So, in the long run of it, I think it would be best, because I don't know if the town could give more under a different line than 147 to offset that cost.
127.
I'm sorry, 127?
All right, take it.
Thank you, you got me. All right. I mean, that would be up to the town to make that decision, correct?
Yeah,
So that would be the town council making the
I wouldn't
decision.
recommend they do that, that's up to them.
Well, I understand, I'm asking you a question, that's all I'm.
That's all.
Okay,
That's it.
so that would be up to the town council to make that decision. If, in fact, we don't want to spread this extra taxes out to the residents of the town, it would probably behoove everybody to get together. That's just my opinion, and I speak for myself on this. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
One question. How many students did you say are going to Hackensack by your?
My calculation right now is 136. That was on the last, I think he said 120. We have 506 in district, and I believe it's climbing. And we have 31 out of district. That's what I believe we have. So we have a total of, that we're paying for now, 673. That was on the last, and it's public record, was on the last agenda item. So you can look it up if you'd like to. But again, it changes every day. Sometimes it changes every week. Sometimes it doesn't change at all. It can go up, it can go down, it can go side, it can go everywhere. So you want to try to get probably a general consensus of an average figure. That would probably be your best bet.
And 622 is a good average, because that's what the published numbers are.
The added district, is that special needs and things that go, and the district pays for that.
Oh, yes.
Cost.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's baked into the tax levy that will go over that.
That has to be discussed, right? So that's part of the tax levy on it too. That's why some, you may see a $12 million budget, but it may cost quite a bit more for other situations, right? So you have to see what chunk is actually taken out of the budget for that education part of it. So that's why I'm saying it would probably be best to look and speak with, in my opinion, I'm not speaking again for the board, but in my opinion, to speak with administration, especially business administrator.
Makes sense.
And you can, whoever wants to set it up,
But the tax levy is the tax levy. If our 622 that's published numbers goes to 650, the only thing that happens.
So the tax levy is what it is.
The cost per student goes from our 19,330 down to 18,500. That's all it does. It's irrelevant. We could talk, sure, we could say, okay, 650, but the average just goes down and it doesn't mean anything.
Well, I don't know if it's irrelevant or not. I believe that if you want statistics, it is relevant, and that's my opinion.
If you want published statistics, we use the published statistics.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi. Can I ask, you're talking about this project wouldn't be done if you didn't give the tax credits. How do you,
The project right now has a yield or a return on investment of about 5.6%. The statute allows any project with less than 12% to be subject to a payment in lieu of tax program. That 5.6% is at the pilot level that we've suggested. If the full taxes were there, the 5.6% would turn into something less than 1%, and financing couldn't be obtained. Now, obviously, someone with $43 million, if they still show, can go out and finance the project and get a 1% return.
okay. So when the application comes in, don't they do a financial disclosure?
No, they do what's called a fiscal plan.
Okay.
We did the fiscal plan in our report in a more comprehensive basis, and that's all I want to say. Those data points that we talked about before need to be verified. So the short answer to your question is they don't do a financial disclosure, they do a fiscal plan based upon the way they see the next 30 years lining up and the absorption of the product in the marketplace. Self-storage, while it's hot to begin with, it does take 4 or 5, 6 years to get a self-storage facility of any size. This is 95,000 square feet, fully leased, as an example. So they did do that. We did it on top of theirs. We did it independently and blindly, so that the governing body has a better sense as to where the markets are, and in a more readable format, we believe. I think everybody would agree, sitting around the table, our format is more readable.
Okay, so, but I'm not understanding. So they came to the town and they said, we can't afford to do this project unless we get the tax incentives.
That's correct.
Okay, so they got a $10 million loan, which has been publicly noted for the storage. So that doesn't come into play as far as.
Sure.
So, with this whole application, was there any mention that this town floods? I mean, and you're talking.
Yeah, that's not our bailiwick, that's the planning board or.
The reason I ask you is I'm hearing a lot of assumptions. It may be this much on the revenue, it may be this, so my question really is, and we flood here, where I'm standing, we could be in water, they're in water. So if there's retail and there's apartments and they're shut down, how much revenue? I would think we get nothing coming in at that point.
Well, the apartments would probably be elevated away from the floodplain, so that's probably not an issue.
Retail.
The retail is only 8,000 square feet, and I say only with all due respect. The storage units, flooding of storage units, there's prophylactics against that, but the residential is really the heart of the project, even though the self-storage may be a profit generator. The heart of the project is the 160 residential with 24 affordable units satisfying our unmet need or realistic development potential, which is a Fair Housing Act requirement. That all said, the residential development has to be lifted outside the floodplain and.
Right, further flooding the rest of the town. To the council, to everybody, this doesn't have to be given. To me, building in a floodplain is a bad idea. I don't know why anybody would do it. And for you to say, okay, here's the money, go ahead, and especially you two, you live in floodplain. I don't know how you look at your neighbors in the eye and think that's okay. You've lived through a flood. I don't understand how you could give credits. If they can't do it, oh well, you know what? Maybe it's not a bad thing that they don't build. I don't know if you went up and down at Christmas time, who can't navigate on this road? 160 apartments down there. Where are they going? Where's these cars going to go? Flood zone. I don't think it's a good idea. I know you're looking for money. Maybe you should reduce your spending. That's what you should look to do. Just a thought.
Hi, everybody. Matt Winsby, 127 Forest Place. I'm also here as a taxpayer tonight, and with your estimate, how did you arrive at the numbers for the estimate with the affordable housing and the rental units of the children that would be imposed on the district?
The 2018 Rutgers study modified a 2006 study, and they had proportions based upon affordable housing units and market rate units. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units. In the 24 units, the 1 bedroom units are expected to generate about a half a child. 1 bedroom units typically, even with affordables, don't generate a lot of children. The 3 bedroom units are generating figures on 5 3 bedroom units. They're going to generate just over 5 children. There's going to be at least 1 child per unit. And on 2 bedroom units, it's going to be about 10 children. That's about 16 children will live in those units. And based upon a granular Rutgers study, it was actually done by the Real Estate Institute last year. It was released around this time last year, in 2018.
Is that report or that information annexed or part of that report?
Yes,
that you
yes,
provided?
it is.
Is this report going to be public? Is it going to be provided to the public?
It will be once it's finalized. It's currently a draft, so it'll be cleaned up, and once it's finalized, it'll be released.
And finalized so before you vote on it or make your final word on it, the council. One thing I didn't see in the estimate, and with what you provided, was any special children, special needs for special children in the estimate. And we all know the cost factor on that is overwhelming. We don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, it affects, there's guidelines that schools don't have the ability to do anything with other than accept.
Sure.
And that's going to be a tax burden that's going to go back on the taxpayers as well.
Right.
So my concern is there's nothing in there for that estimate.
There's 10% of your district, approximately 10%, a little bit less, are special needs children. That's pretty typical. 10% in this scenario would be about 2 children. Again, their needs can range and their costs can range. Typically, you don't see special needs children in these apartments. Typically, they're in homes, single-family homes, or small homes. The $127,000 currently paid to the school board when there's no children being generated will be paid in the future. We estimate the cost of the children living here to be about $94,000. We do a $33,000 spread. So any fluctuations up to 26 children, any fluctuations to special needs. In addition, it's covered, we believe that that's the entire range of children, which includes infants, toddlers, and school-age children, and also children that may not be in school, especially in the affordable units, that are 17 and 18 years old. So that blends together and averages out. It may not here, but it tends to average out. You take into the conservative factors that of the 24 children living here, 25 children living here, several will be infants and toddlers. 1 or 2 maybe with 17, 18-year-olds who are not in school. And also, you may not have that many children, but you may have up to 2 special needs children. And you have a flex of $33,000, 127 versus the 95,000 or so that we estimate the school zone be hit with an additional cost.
Okay, as one other taxpayer had said that came up before, I would strongly suggest you speak to the school and have an open dialogue with the numbers and the information that's being presented forth, because again, I'm here as a taxpayer, and that's it, but I would say the numbers really should be looked at from that perspective as well, because I think we just went through a referendum not that long ago, where we had to increase facilities, especially for certain needs. I don't want to get too much farther into it from that end, but I would say it's definitely a good idea. Also, being new to this and not knowing much about it and trying to learn,
Sure.
Are there comparisons provided from other districts, other areas that we can have, that we can, the taxpayer can look at and say, oh yeah, look, it worked successfully over here in River Edge, or over here in Gramercy, or over here in Maywood, or wherever.
In terms of pilots?
Yeah.
Well,
something that would compare to what we're talking about putting here with the affordable housing and the, and the imposition that obviously, a lot of taxpayers feel there's an imposition on the school system and how it's gonna affect them.
Sure, one of the key marquee projects in this area is the Harmony up in Carolina, Tool.
I'm aware of it.
You know how many school-age children live there?
How many what?
School-age children live there in the whole Harmony?
That's fairly new, right? That's the one on, right on Plaza Road in Fairlawn?
Yeah, it's not, it's
Plaza
actually started
Road.
about 7 years ago. One child, one school-age child lives there, that goes to public school, one. The whole Harmony.
One that goes to public school?
Yep.
That's the,
All you have to do is call up the business administrator, borough parameters, they just checked it out 3 weeks ago. One public school-age children.
Paramus or
Fairlawn? No, call up parameters, because they did the survey in Fairlawn.
do you have any other information provided with?
No, I don't
consider.
we're not allowed, I don't mean to interrupt, we're not allowed to do comparisons because the application is on a case basis and the yield for the project has to be less than 12%. So that's the first standard, that the project's return on investment has to be less than 12%. If there's environmental remediation or land costs in this project, and let's say Town Center in Englewood or the Route 4 in Englewood or the Avalon project in Tina are different because they're land bases. For example, the Avalon project in Tina, Queen Anne Road, that does not have a pilot, even though the taxes there are rather high. The reason that their land costs were less. So every project is a little bit different, it's a lot different in most cases. So we're just dealing with the application. Here, we were also asked to take a look preemptively at the school-age children issue. But I will tell you that when you see, especially the market rate units, they're very, very low amount of school-age children. You don't typically find families moving into those units. Not so true with the affordable housing. Affordable housing, you do see more school-age children. But even in the property in Fairlawn, one school-age child, one. And that's in Fairlawn.
And how many residences are those?
I believe it's 212.
212 residences? Those are 3-bedroom?
There's a few, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of 3 bedrooms built in the Market Street anyway. There's not a lot of 3 bedrooms here.
Right.
There's 160 units, you only have 5 3-bedroom units. It's not a lot of 3-bedroom units. And most of the 3-bedroom units, the third bedroom is extremely small, it's 110 square feet, 120 square feet. 10 by 11 or 10 by 12 is statutory construction code minimums.
And I'll turn my question back over to Mayor and Council. Is the concern with this project that they will file for a tax appeal and that you won't get the revenue through a tax appeal? That's why we're considering a pilot program?
Well, I don't wanna, well, I mean, the taxes, the assessment goes down by virtue of the fact that they've removed all the improvements, so.
Right.
That automatically would go down, but that, I don't think that would impact whether a pilot is granted or not.
Was there any comparison before Mr. Benacki was involved on what the assessed value of this developed property would be and what the tax revenue would produce compared to what would be?
Yeah,
I just asked that, what answered that question from the perspective, this requires a $43 million investment, so that would be your base assessment.
Mhm.
That would generate just over $1 million in taxes instead of the $650,000 of pilot. If that grew, and that was the commissioner or the committeeman's point, that would grow to $60 million and your taxes would grow to about $1.5 million, depending upon how the tax rate shook out. That then would get you in this type of project, what I call the tax appeal chain, where every 3 years, like Avalon and Lyndhurst, they continually appeal their taxes because the taxes are too high compared to the rent. This gives certainty to both the town, other program, and to the developer. And again, the return is 5.6%. I can't get involved. We haven't been asked to get involved in issues like floodplains, issues like, building permit issues. That's not our bailiwick. Our bailiwick is simply, what do you think this is going to cost to build? $43 million for 3 components. And how much do you think the revenues are going to be after debt service? If they're going to be in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 million, about 5%, a little bit more. That's clearly below the statutory mark of 12%. It clearly qualifies on that basis for a pilot. If you had traditional taxes, I would think that the redeveloper wouldn't go ahead with the project, whether they do a component of it, whether they ask for a different modification, I wouldn't know.
So you think the developer would not go ahead with the project if it didn't?
If I was the redeveloper, I wouldn't. I don't think you would. I mean, I don't know.
I would, if I were a developer getting involved, I probably would have did that before I actually considered buying the property.
Well, keep in mind that they're not allowed to do it before they buy the property.
But speculate, you would speculate. You can't, I know you can't file the applications, and you can't do that. That's like saying, you're going to file the application for a permit without having a set of plans yet, but you want to build an addition 30 by 30, so you have an idea in your mind what you want to put up. So you're gonna need some speculation on that. So budgeting, we were talking about budgeting before.
And most projects do have pilots associated with them, whether they're in Hackensack or whether they're in Richfield Park or wherever they may be. Most, not all, clearly not all. Probably north of New Brunswick, probably about 70 to 80% of all projects have a pilot associated with them. Now keep in mind, before the statutory floor is up, the reports turn back, especially for the non-code use, in other words, non-residential. We also took the statutory threshold of 80% of otherwise applicable taxes, which could be as late as the 29th year, and we report it back to the 20th year. Now, that says a lot, but this project might take 8 years to fulfill. May take 7, may take 6. We're thinking it's going to take 6 years to fulfill, 20 through 25 to fulfill and get leased up. So it's going to take a long time. 4 or 5 years after that, they go to 11% of annual gross revenues, and they do the test. If they're making more than 120% of the fiscal plan, they go to 12%. 8 years later, we go to a minimum of 80% of applicable taxes or the applicable percentage, whichever is greater. And in the 25th year, after the 25th year, the non-residential abatements go away, or exemptions go away. That's our proposal. Their proposal was a 10% for 30 years.
Okay. And the property, when I understand it right, the property tax is not part of it. It cannot be part of the pilot program, right?
No, it can be. The current property tax will be, but it folds into it as a credit. So the total amount is $650,000. The current tax is approximately $250,000. So the $400,000 is the additional annual service charge. And on top of that, 2%, or about $12,000 a year, goes to the town for issuing the bills and servicing the pilot itself and managing it. So the cost of management is not included in the pilot, separate 2%, and we have that baked into our program.
And the generated, you had mentioned before, you had mentioned the R word, referendum. The referendum would have to be imposed to generate enough money to expand the school to take on the students that are there.
That's typical in a type 2 school district, 98%, assuming you don't qualify for school development administration programs, which I assume you don't, then you would have a referendum. And the referendum then would have to be voted on with your plans, to expand the school.
Right.
Then you have debt service aid. The debt service aid, as you have in your current school budget, would be used to offset that referendum amount. The problem with the debt service aid is, now, the last several years, it's subject to annual appropriation. I mean, the legislature has always appropriated that. The other problem with it is that based upon $120 a square foot generally of build out, these buildings cost, even plain vanilla buildings with the land cost is baked in at $200, $250 a square foot. So the state aid isn't sufficient right now to cover your debt.
Where are those numbers coming from?
They're coming from NJAC. Take a look at the school board. You can either go to the State Board of Education's website, or for the school board administration, I think the site. It's a lengthy regulation, but you'll see it there. Or you can go to Google any town that's had a referendum approved in the last 4 or 5 years. You go to the referendum question, you'll see the citation right there. And you'll see how the state school aid is deducted.
Okay. For now, my questions are answered. So when when would be the proposed date that the final draft of this would be available to the public? I'm assuming it'd be available to all the public, right? Not over it.
I'm hopeful that we'll have a final presentation by Mr. Benke at the next meeting, which is the 29th. And then the final cleaned up report would be ready, when do you think, Bob?
The next day. I mean, we'll have this cleaned up based upon the information tonight. The next 2 or 3 business days will present it on the 29th, and then the draft will be lifted.
So it'll be right, that'll be the time.
That'd be available to, but we have to come in over it, or you can.
No, we'll make it,
Put it on the website.
Yeah, it'll be available then.
We're not by the way, we're not advocating for this.
Yeah.
You have an application in, we're saying what's reasonable, what's the most reasonable. And without it, we don't believe the project is financially viable. Again, if somebody wants to put 44 million, 43 million in change into the town and receive a 1% return with the hopes of in 10 or 12 years receiving more, God bless. But we believe that based upon the statutory criteria and the application and the site plan approval, that a pilot is reasonable, but not a pilot capable. A much richer pilot is we outlined tonight.
It's a lot to digest. A lot to digest. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Chris Muller, Forest Place. Just, the 155,000, that was based on the 2018 or 2019 assessment. I kind of lost it because I heard the gas station.
The current, that is nonsense, right? The $255,000 is the current, it's 254 and change.
Right.
Is based upon the assessment from 2018 in the state tax database.
Okay, so that was, the property was assessed at $10 million.
Something like that.
Yeah, 10,311,000.
Yeah, prior to demolition bill.
Right, and now it's worth $4,542,000.
Right, and we're still saying that the 254,000 shall be, regardless of demolition, shall be the minimum annual service charge on the property.
All right, so that was before, okay. So my other question is, you entered into a developer's agreement for the cube with these guys. Did you sign that finally?
Developers agreement? Yeah, that's.
So can they walk away from that cube?
Well, they can build the cube regardless if that's what they choose to do.
But can they walk away from it? You didn't actually know. You said it's going to be the whole thing.
Well, I suppose anybody could walk away from the project, but, that's,
Where the plans-
standing
the plans
alone.
approved, they could sell the plans to someone else.
I'm sorry?
They could sell the plans to someone else.
Yeah, that's
Technically
right.
it's free.
That standing
Build
on
that,
its own is probably profitable, I suppose. But-
I'm just worried, can they walk away from the mess they've made? They've gone over the limit of disturbance, they destroyed the entire property. They need a net fill compensation area, which is what I was worried about when they came. Can they just walk away?
As I said before, that's the unknown part of all this. They will say, and they have said, that without an agreement like this, they're not going to build the project.
But see what happened, they came to us.
No, there's those that say that would be crazy. They put all this money into it. We don't know that. Now, our independent expert has looked at the numbers and has determined that it probably makes no fiscal or financial sense to build this project without an agreement like this. That's his opinion, and that's what and that's what they say. Now, whether they may build it anyway. They may find somebody else that'll put the 43 million in and build it.
Well, my
We don't
complaint
know
is,
that.
in 2017, you had a settlement agreement, fair share or whatever it is, housing settlement agreement ready to be signed. They jumped in, disrupted the whole thing for 2 years, and then, we had 120 units or whatever it was. They upped it to 160, blah, blah, blah. Now they're turning around and telling us they can't do it. So I'm just, I understand what you're saying. I understand what everybody's saying, but.
Just go over that real slowly. So in your mind, and the fact basis is in 2017, Fair Share Housing Center in the township had a settlement agreement.
Just about to be signed.
And they were interveners of some sort.
Right.
and they moved their unit count from 120 to 160.
Right.
And then we had an RDP of 15%, which is 24 units.
Right.
That is a Fair Housing Act requirement.
No, I'm well aware of that.
So, I guess my point is that if you were to build 24 affordable units, that would cost you a minimum of $5 million without the land cost.
Right.
It's $209,000 in capital per unit. The amount of rent that you get is approximately $13 a square foot in Bergen County. There's all sorts of income strata and everything else, approximately $13 a square foot. The market rent is well over $30 a square foot. So you're losing per unit at least a minimum.
Who's losing? They are.
Whoever builds it. Let's
Whoever
say I
came in
build it.
speculating.
Yeah,
right.
whoever comes in, they're losing, so they can't build those affordable units. So what the state does is say, okay, we're gonna go from 120 to 144 or to 160, so that we get the 24 units built. And the way we get it built is that we add more density or more units in the marketplace to make up for the affordable. That's not me talking.
No, believe me, I know there's nothing you can tell me about this.
It may not be, it's just, it is.
No,
what
I know it is.
financially.
No, I'm just telling you, I think right now. I was just worried about them, walking away from that cube and leaving the mess that they've done, that they went over the limit of disturbance, I know you don't know.
No, I can't address.
No, I'm just making a statement there. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Motion to close.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, go back in.
So if I may, Mayor, before you proceed, I'm going to suggest that based on the discussions tonight, that the closed session discussion on the agenda tonight be removed. I think it's, frankly, premature. There's some additional work that has to be done. And we perhaps revisit it on the 29th in closed session. And then by then, the final report by Mr. Beneke will be ready. Clear up any other open issues with the developer. And I think it'd be more fruitful. And I just think it's not even really ready for any financial discussion at this point. So unless somebody disagrees.
I mean, I think we have it in there as a placeholder. I think that there's probably going to be some discussion about just initial reactions to this.
I don't think we should. It's only my opinion, but I think there's sufficient gaps in the application that.
Oh, then I don't want to hear anyone say anything about it, whether they like it.
Right, no, I agree.
So as long as if we're taking it off, then nobody said anything.
Yeah, because, that's what I would recommend. I mean, obviously it's your choice, but that's what I would recommend.
That's fine. I'm okay with that as long as we don't discuss it.
Right.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Next on the agenda is William Street parking. I know Mr. Cavallo's here, and I didn't want to take it off because I just wanted to give an update. I spoke with Mr. Cavallo yesterday as well as Chief Lanley, and they seem to have come up with a working agreement that they're going to work on. I know Ms. Cavallo's going to present it to her board, and if it comes back favorably, then she'll let the chief know. The chief will help write an ordinance, it'll come before us, and we'll just make sure that it's what we're looking for. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you.
They were excused, correct?
Yes.
Joyce and John.
Yes, thank you both.
Good night, everyone. Sorry.
Hi. Yes, I did speak to, I was called by Chief Final yesterday, and we had the meeting with the council, and, you were here when I don't think council here, and I was here.
I thought it was after you and I spoke yesterday. You had a meeting last night.
Yesterday we called and said we have a small meeting about this, and I cannot decide for the board, everything that was given some kind of proposition of give and take on William Street was now presented to the superintendent, who will then present it to the board. So the information will come back that way, I believe, that's how it's gonna come back. But I was here with council, and it was pretty much explaining in my opinion, of the objectives that we talked about here at the council. So I just wanted to clarify that. This has already been given to the superintendent, and he will discuss it with the board, and we'll go from there. Hopefully it'll be resolved soon.
I want to put this on the work session for the 12th. Again, just a placeholder. Was there something before? Because I know you said you had a.
We have a meeting
board
later in the
towards end of
month.
the
Yes, there's a meeting later in the month. We have a reorg on Friday, the 12th. The work session.
Oh, in February?
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking January, sorry.
We have our meeting later, so we can't discuss, that has to be discussed with the board at that time, and that would be discussed by the superintendent. So, and he will notify the board.
So just for, there's gonna be a recommendation made to the board. And then official action by the board asking us to act upon certain.
No, once the school board either approves or comes back with other suggestions, she'll work with the chief, and the chief will work with her, hopefully to tighten it up, and come up with an ordinance that they can give to us that we can look through and make our recommendation.
I believe that would come from also the council. I believe that would be council, but these are some of the suggestions
Right.
that the chief has. These suggestions go to the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed talks about it, comes back. I'm probably going to say through the superintendent, but that's up to whoever
Right.
decides to do. And they say, yes, no, maybe we can do this, that, or whatever. And so the discussion has to be, I can't make the decision. The board has to make the decision. We work as a board of a whole.
But just with that, can you provide documentation, that the board supports the direction that you're gonna come back to us with a recommendation?
I believe it's,
At some point, that'll be the case.
it would have to be, because
At
I
some
believe the
point, that'll be-
superintendent would have to talk to you about that. This is X, Y, Z. This is what the board said, and I believe that from now it goes to the superintendent to come back to you. Even if you want documentation.
I mean, or
council can
or
do
a
that.
vote by the board
Sure.
that this is the plan of action that we recommend. Could the township please assist us in achieving it? That's really what I'm looking for.
I understand what you're looking for,
If
yes.
that's the avenue that we can.
But that would also have to be discussed among, as everybody knows, through the board as a whole.
Right.
So that's their, decision.
So just so nobody's confused, I had drafted an ordinance in line with what Ms. Corallo.
No, Mr. Giacobi, Attorney Giacobi.
You're right, he was here.
He was
You-
here,
You were
he-
here
right.
as well.
I
We
was
made the
with Mr.
presentation.
Giacobi, right.
Right, so I had submitted that to you for consideration. We're going to table that one because it may change.
Well, it may change, yes,
Right.
but I mean, with that, I'm going to be saying probably, I don't know. I can't speak again for the board, but I can say it may change a little.
Okay.
But this is the direction we may be looking. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda item is the OEM procedures.
That's me.
That's you.
Last year, the OEM coordinator would not include me in his emails to the township committee. So I'm asking that that resolution be redone this year. So I am included. I'm a member of the township committee, the township of Rochelle Park. The OEM coordinator, he is an appointed position. So I'm asking that we reintroduce that ordinance, the resolution.
I'm not in favor of the adoption. The OEM director should communicate with the mayor and the
Here's,
clerk.
here's the lawyer. Here's the letter from Joe. Yeah, here's the letter from Joe. Here's the letter from Michael, and went to you. Mark, do you need it? Any members of the audience want to see it? I don't know.
That must have been before we did it.
Can I have a little more information on this? This is from last year?
Yes.
So what happened?
He chose not to include me in his emails,
Okay.
and I'm the only member of the township committee that wasn't included in his emails.
So this procedure then stated this is.
The
from last-
resolution
Right.
stated that he has to include me in the emails.
So,
All members of the township committee.
We don't do that with any other departments, though. I don't get updated from DPW or the police department.
You didn't get the 11 weather reports? I know,
No, I haven't gotten it. I haven't been in.
okay, Nick, that's all right. Take a vote on it.
So, well, I just want a little more information on it. So we're asking this one group to.
One person.
One person, so we're.
We send
Copy everybody.
emails,
Every time
copy
he sends an
everybody.
email, he's gonna copy it.
He always did. He always did, and then all of a sudden stopped.
When I was here.
Yeah, you were here, Nick. You were on the township committee last year.
I didn't get all those emails you're talking about.
Well, they stopped coming.
So my letter told Mr. Donatello that the township committee found that to be inappropriate, unacceptable, and I asked him to reconsider his opinion, position as far as giving out the information, so. And then I guess that resulted in that resolution. I don't remember when it was adopted, but the date's probably falling.
I can go back into my computer files.
Right, but is this procedure, is what we're asking, in addition to what any other department head is being asked to do? And we shouldn't be setting up different criteria for different department heads.
That's my point. Because I don't get copy from the police chief.
That's in 2018 beforehand, I told you, 11 emails on weather condition for one storm that never hit this area. Then all of a sudden, when there was issues, he decided to exclude me from the emails. Now we don't get any, so you probably haven't gotten any.
I haven't gotten any.
Yeah, they don't come anymore.
So if you want to make a motion to adopt, you're free to do.
Oh, I could see it right now, that's okay, no problem.
Well,
No
if you want to
problem.
vote, put the vote out.
No, you do it, Nick.
I'm not going to introduce it.
Yeah, I know.
You don't want to do it?
No, just want to bring it out, like I'll bring everything else out.
Parking on Lexington Ave?
Well, last time we spoke about it, we discussed, remember, I believe I sent you over the ordinance from Woodridge. That was one of the things that and really we haven't actually made a decision which way we want to go.
Right.
That had restricted hours on it.
Right.
But they also do the permits. That's one of the ways that they. So it was really a discussion item, and nobody's
talked about the hours.
So there, yes, I mean, but there's really been, no final decision was made as to how you do it.
Yes, the Lyndhurst ordinance was one way to address it. There's other ways we can do permits, you do hours,
We talked that we were going to do it for the hours of, what was it, 8 to 10?
Okay, you could pick, you pick any two random hours in the morning, you could do like 9 to 11 or something like that, like a 2-hour window.
Well, we want to be, I guess, cognizant of the fact that people are living there on the street. So if the earlier in the day that we do it, it's probably less intrusive in their day-to-day living outside their house and parking in front of their house. So if we are looking to, if we're looking to eliminate,
I can't hear you.
So if we're looking to eliminate the uncomfortable experience with our residents, then what we do is we push it as early as possible so that the commuters that are parking there wind up not, parking there, and then the residents can still use the street in front of their house. So,
Well, if you do it on Lexington, all you're gonna do is probably shift them over to Madison.
well, then we do it
And
on.
High Street, but no, they'll just do the whole length.
Then we do it on High Street. I mean,
I mean, you basically have to treat it like a grid.
Will it
and
be
just
enforced,
Go
is
like
my
2 blocks in.
because you turn off Essex onto High, and you have cars
Oh,
right on the corner.
Right on the corner.
I mean, it's really sometimes dangerous.
The history of this goes on, this is not something that's new today. This has been going on for as long as I can possibly remember, even when I was on the police department. And it is an issue, there's no question about it. And all you're doing is you're moving people from one block to another block to another. And I think I even got up in one of the meetings myself here and said, we want to be all of our streets are sitting here with signs all over the place, trying to restrict people from parking, and again, that's really up to the township committee, certainly not up to me, but.
Yeah, you're gonna push them further and further off of the main street.
Yeah.
Push them into neighborhoods.
And that's all you're doing is pushing the problem someplace
You do it
else.
on the one street, you're just gonna push them into
Yeah.
2 blocks. I mean, I don't know if they'll park 3 blocks in, but
So we're not gonna address
2
it?
blocks in, 2 blocks in.
Well, wouldn't it spread them out more? I mean, at least on Lexington, they're all right in one tight area. Even if you put the signs there, yes, people will find another parking spot, but they'll be spread out to other streets.
They complain about this here, Lexington, Harvey,
Yeah.
everywhere we hear it. So why don't you do a blanket wide, town wide, no parking between 7 and 9 every street? I'm not kidding, it's like, how do you pick and
It's easier to
choose?
enforce.
This was discussed in the parking commission, and that's exactly what they said. If you take it off of Lexington, they go to Madison. If you take them off of Harvey, they go to the next street. So that's just like they go to the next street and go to the next street.
And we're going to provide an exemption for, let's say, service vehicles that might be paying, like service call to residents, houses, plumbers, electricians, professionals, so we make an exemption for that.
Sure.
I think then all we would have to do then, we would have to have a sign at all of our entrances.
Yeah, you have to give notice,
But that's how you-
But I mean, that's like, you can't single out, could you have residents complained about the parking on Harvey?
Oh, I think it should be applied to.
Because we're the second zone. It's cheaper once you cross the Rochelle Park border
Right.
on the bus.
Yeah, we're
You
at the end of the zone.
sticker program too.
We also have the issue, so we have signs on Parkway, we have them on Grove Avenue, we have them on Becker Avenue, just as an example, right now.
I mean,
And that's just a 2-hour park.
what we don't want to do, we want to limit the area where these zones are laid out, because I don't think we want to create a hardship for other residents. We want to create the open space in front of somebody's house so that most of the time through the day, somebody can park out in front of their house. So I understand the even application of, doing it for the entire town, but I think we should do it in areas where we know there are problems. And yes, if they expand to another area, then we have to address it that way. But, maybe we look into finding a commuter parking area. Maybe we work with Matt Cali that has a massive parking lot that is underutilized. Maybe we can have them park there instead of on our streets.
But it's a public street, so you're not gonna, unless the parking sign's up, you can't really force them.
Oh, I know, that's why we
You
put
try to
up.
still have people that want to circumvent that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing is that, one of the reasons why I like the idea of just doing all the streets is all you need to do is put up a sign at each of the entrances, that's it. Instead of us having to go up there and put, I don't know, hundreds of signs up, you know what the cost of that is? Just, putting up all those signs? I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
by law, is there a
tremendous
certain
cost.
distance between them?
Yes, absolutely.
What about if we did it all streets? We wouldn't have to do it distance?
So that's why I
As you
say,
enter-
yeah,
as you
just
enter,
like the
the overnight
overnight
parking.
parking, you have no parking between 3 and 6 a.m. You have no parking on any road in Rochelle Park between 7 and 9 or 8.
whatever you decide is the hourly, we'll pay it. It's gonna do the same thing.
Enforcement again comes up.
Yeah, I mean, and the issue, quite honestly, is gonna be like, so if we have an issue on the Lexington Avenue, a person complains, and the police will come out and take care of that. Because listen, I mean, police aren't gonna be out there checking on every single street, all the time either, so.
But by giving them the time limits of saying 2-hour parking, that's kind of hard too, because they have to drive around,
Yeah.
document that the car was there,
What about people
around?
What about
Well,
people?
that's why you don't do the.
That's what I'm saying,
It's
that's like twice the enforcement.
Right, so, yeah, the 2 hours.
Doing certain hour windows, though, instead of iterations is
You're much
easier.
better off doing the specific.
Yeah, and that's all fine. What about a family that has multiple cars and has to shuffle them in the morning, put them on the street so a kid can get to school or something like that? So I mean, that's the problem. Now everyone's gonna be waiting to pull back into a
Yeah,
driveway.
sometimes at night, you have to do it. I mean, yeah, my parents had the driveway where it's funneled at the bottom, so the one car got out. But at night, we had to work out who's getting out first in the morning, and we just line them up, who was going out first.
No,
It stinks, because sometimes you gotta chop
for
it.
several streets, but it just seems like we're creating a burden for the entirety of the town.
I mean, unless you wanna run an experiment and do like 2 streets and see if it pushes anything even further in. If it
I guess,
pushes anything
I guess,
further
I
in,
guess the point is that
Problem's not gonna go
how
up.
far are people not willing to walk?
That's what I'm saying.
Is
If
it
you
3
do,
blocks?
every time, if you do 2 blocks in,
When we went to
maybe,
the train,
I don't know.
remember about the train? They said people will walk a half a mile
To save,
to get to the train.
you know, to save $7 on parking.
Well,
And again,
I do know on Harvey, the people parking there, it's not all out of town people, it's people within that neighborhood who don't want to walk the extra block. So I think the sign would divert those people at least, that leave the car in your driveway that's 5 blocks away, rather than driving the 4 blocks. But some of them are Rochelle Park residents that just don't want to walk if it's raining or something like that. So I think the signs especially on Harvey, right by that light there where you're coming in and out, it's tight because you have people parked on both sides, and the same thing is happening on Lexington with people parking on both sides. But I think the sign in those concentrated areas might divert some people who live in town.
If you have an area has high traffic going in and out, and you know people are gonna keep double parking and they're gonna funnel it down, to basically turn it into a one-way like that, maybe we should just consider maybe that 1 block or something, maybe say no parking on one side of the street, so that you limit that, so you have two, you know, the traffic can flow both ways, and you could put parking
Unless
on
you
one
live on the
side.
side. You want to know where to
Yeah,
park.
yeah.
Precisely. And it's like I said before with the 2 hour.
What are the streets? We know Harvey, Lexington, Madison, right? And High Street.
Well, then, like I
Side
said,
street
it
between
has-
Essex and, Essex and Lexington. That's
We wanna
like,
go
that's
as
the
far
fun
as
part,
that?
right?
No, the signs are already up.
But I know, but the new ones? Might as
Well,
well,
there's,
right?
you're gonna have to change it if you're not gonna get it.
It's a lot, I mean,
What sign?
you have to find out the
What
cost.
about
Yeah, what are the signs?
What about
cost?
residents parking stickers? So if they're Harvey, you know it's residents, not out of
We
town.
would still have to change signs for that too, though, right? Because we have to say,
One sign in the beginning, resident parking, one sign coming into town, resident parking stickers needed between
Yeah, that's
7 to
generally how
5,
it's done.
9 to
Yeah,
5.
resident parking
How are you
You
program.
do a 2 hour,
I'm sorry?
you can do a 2 hour window kind of thing, and
Well, that's what the
Urban park
Woodbridge,
Residents, yeah, yeah.
it's kind of like what the Woodbridge one is.
Yeah.
Except they actually have it posted on the streets. It seems to me like that's a better way of dealing with it.
Well, it's limited to.
you're saying everyone would get a parking sticker and then
Everyone
you
else.
shut
That's
your
why-
cars
that's why
out,
you always
the example
get-
that I gave.
Everyone that applies, if you have the need to shuffle your cars out to the street,
It would be-
then you get the sticker, you come down, you get the sticker.
So the resident has to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, as an example, to go to work. Doesn't have to worry about getting hit with that 2 hour period.
Yeah, it just makes patrolling a little bit more difficult. Because of their stickers, as opposed to just ticketing anyone that's on the street.
You'd have to put together a set of regulations, what kind of proofs you have to, does the car have to be registered, then at address?
Yes,
What
I
if
would
it's a
say,
leased- What if it's
yes.
a leased car that has New York plates, because it's a lease, what if, like,
and then they're gonna say, what if I turn my car in and I get a
Basic
new
car.
car?
What documents you need?
There's a lot of what ifs, but.
Yeah, just, as long as you know you have to address them, that's all.
Right, so let's, I mean, I think that's a,
Should we, do you want to go forward with some type of
We
plan?
have to amend our ordinance, just tell me what you want in, it's easiest to do, but we have to introduce it and adopt it. Then the implementation, you could probably do as it develops, see,
Well, why don't we work on something? I don't know, it has to be finalized, but at least get something
Yeah, can we
based
find,
on
if
what
we
we
find
what
it
we started
comparable
to
with
talk
what Bridge is
about.
comparable, can we just copy what they,
So,
pull what they have?
but you're talking about the whole town for.
Stickers, signs at the entrances of the town saying, 2 hour parking but just no parking 7 to 10, or 8
Residential-
to 10.
Residential parking sticker needed between.
So, on any street.
7 and 9, or you want to do 8 to 10?
I don't know, Bob, what's the patrol, Bob, what's the patrol shift
Yeah,
hours?
maybe
What's
seven-
the
seven-
patrol
seven to
hours?
10.
7 to 10.
I think 7 to 9 works.
I mean, that's when at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think 7 to 9, not 7 to 10, right? I think 2 hours is enough, because that'll,
You just have to dissuade people from who's going to work. I mean, what happens after that probably doesn't matter that
But then like a lot on West End, they're parking out of the businesses out on West End and
That's
Lexington.
not enough for professional.
Yeah.
That's why I want it to be concentrated to just those.
And that's,
So it's important a lot.
and that is enforcement based upon the plan, the building department, and they need to adhere to the approvals of the planning board. So those are things that we can do part of enforcement. But if we start doing this, we'll actually know what the problem areas are and which people are causing.
Businesses complaining they need more parking for their employees or.
But they testify that they have enough space on their property to park their cars for their employees and their guests.
I don't know, ever during their day, so I don't ever see if their lot is ever full.
Yeah,
You know,
but-
the whole back part.
They make the statement, then it's not our problem at that point, and we certainly don't want it affecting the other side streets.
we also try to get a cost.
You'll have to find out how much
The
the-
4 signs, the stickers, and the administrative costs will be for people applying, coming in.
Yeah, come in, whatever the case might be.
Can you work on that, please?
Yeah. We can put something on the website for
Those
the,
hours.
Yeah, you want to discuss it and introduce it in February? I mean, what do you want to try to do?
Yeah, I was.
If you could get it to us so we can.
Pin down-
look at it.
You gotta pin down what the criteria is.
Yeah.
You have to be
I
a
mean, I could have
registered
ordinance
car in
for
the
the
township.
January meeting, but I don't know whether you're ready.
I think we just want something now that we could all look at and say, all right, this looks like something we can do and make changes from
Yeah,
there.
that I.
and even implementing things, getting stickers together and putting that all together is not gonna happen.
Right, yeah, it will take a little while.
But in the meantime, you'll get a price and we'll get that ready.
Yeah.
Non-contractual employee hours.
That's, I thought I don't know why this was on here. I
But we
thought we
agreed to it
agreed.
last time, right?
Yeah, for all new non-contractual employees hired, they're gonna work an extra, half hour every day. So I thought we were done with that.
Yeah.
It just has to be drawn up.
Right, we'll have to put it
It
in
just
the,
had to be drawn up by.
I thought it was 35 hours, it's not an extra half hour.
Well, they're a 7-hour workday, so it would add a half hour to it. 9 to 4,
So
it's a 7-hour workday, so it would be whatever, either 8:30 to 4 or 9 to 4:30. But it's for new hires only, that does not cost the town anything.
And then we said we were gonna leave the hours up to the administrator based on whether they come in at
Exactly.
8:30 or to 4 or 9 to 4:30.
so I'll have the ordinance, and that'll go in chapter 27, which is the personnel manual. And it'll be just 35 hours, all new hires, actual hours to be determined by the administrator.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark, reevaluation?
I did not put that on there.
DPW salary contract.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When we're gonna,
We're gonna talk about that. in
I'm
close.
sorry.
yeah, we said
Yeah.
It's not settled yet, just say that, we could say that.
Reevaluation, nothing,
Speaking
Mark?
of Jamie, I saw Jamie Ty prior to the meeting, and he did say that we got to go ahead for 21.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so we'll do it in 2021, it'll take effect 2022,
okay,
so sometime
And that was gonna include
the map,
the new mapping?
right, we should include the map, yeah. So sometime probably latter part of this year, we should go out to bid for the reval company, I guess. You know, sometime this year.
What are we looking at?
I think last time it was about $150,000.
What did he say? It was
Plus the
about 20 or
maps.
30,000 or 30?
Yeah.
30th of that.
And that bid that we got was a lot lower than the other bid, you know, it was, for whatever reason, it just came in very low, so I think it's probably gonna be a bit higher, plus the map added to it, so maybe 200, I don't know. But
Well, you figure the map is gonna be at least 40,
yeah, so right there,
doing the GIS is gonna be about
and
40.
you can bond it, so.
Yes.
No. Right. Mr. Casimir, ambulance corps?
Well, there were a couple things. I think you received an email from me earlier today about doing inventory on the ambulance building and the elements that are in there and the equipment. So at this point, I asked the administrator to hold off on continuing with that until we have a chance for the township committee to decide what the process is on going forward. And then also, if I'm interested in seeing a package put together that not only addresses the ambulance corps, but the fire department as well, to put together a member retention program. Something that might give an incentive to people to volunteer and continue volunteering in the township. If we don't do something like this and we have to go to a professional service, we know that there's costs that are associated with that. So and there's a couple ways we can do it with the ambulance corps. If we put it on the township itself, or we can actually go to possibly the police department to manage that as well. It would not necessarily be at first a volunteer-based organization, but once it's underway, I would hope that the volunteers could potentially start picking up some of those hours. So at this point, that's what I have.
I guess I had one question, and it's just in regards to now, we have Hackensack 24/7 essentially, right? Only contracted for 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. Right. Are we in any liability for the residents not having a contract from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
No, by state law, we're not even required to provide it.
And the other thing is that quite frankly, for a number of months, they were covering that. I'm not gonna say they've cut all the calls, but they've cut the majority of the calls. And what the chief is doing, he is monitoring, the calls for the evening, just to make sure that we don't have an issue. If there is an issue, we see there's an issue, and we will address it. And the only other thing is, if I just can, just reference to the inventory, was just nothing more than just to protect all the equipment and everything else we have in it, so at least we have some kind of knowledge what's there. There's no intention whatsoever to do anything more than that.
Is the inventory complete at this point? They did a video?
They did a video inventory yesterday. I spoke with the officers that were doing the work, and they did that yesterday. It was at my request, I spoke with the chief, but I didn't do anything without first talking to the two lieutenants who've been dealing with the ambulance corps for the last 2 years. So it's not like they weren't aware of what was happening.
Okay. Were they present at the time when that was happening?
My understanding is that one of them was there, and there was also somebody else from the, who worked very closely with the ambulance corps who was there as well.
But no, just so we're clear and on record, no member of the township committee was notified.
No, I didn't really, quite honestly, I really didn't think it was necessary to just do an inventory. So again, we're just trying to protect the property. There is going to be a question that's going to come up, just so that you are aware that they do have, is that as far as dispersing some of the items that were purchased from fundings, outside funding that they've received, how to go forward with that. I actually had that conversation with Mr. Sewell this afternoon. So that's one of the things that are going to have to be addressed. But that's not something we need to deal with today.
Have any of the funds for the ambulance corps been appropriated anywhere else? Or
dispersed
or reassigned or?
No. I mean, right now, we have a temporary budget that we're working off of. And so nothing has changed as far as that's concerned.
Oh, I'd like to see the funding as well as the amount that has been donated or collected through other means frozen, so that it's not able to be transferred or touched in any other way.
Right.
And I think that's something that we could probably do as a township committee. Authorize that we freeze those funds. This way,
For future use?
for future use or for the use that it was intended for.
Well, I guess they're talking about the funds that were donated, to the ambulance corps when they increased the contributions in the past, or people donated money because they helped with a loved one, whatever the case might be. Those type of funds that went directly to their account. That was
I would
outside.
say the membership, their lieutenants and their membership should be able to decide what happens to that money. They raised it.
I'm actually talking about the money, budgetary money, the township money that is there, and the fund that is going to, that was meant for purchasing equipment. So the ambulance fund and all the other.
Haven't we bonded for
Why
ambulances in the past?
don't you put it into the
Should
debt?
have paid cash for it.
So that is my request, that until we decide that we have a plan in place, that no monies that are currently not being used gets put into another department or stripped from that department.
Again, you're talking about, if I understand, right? So I want to make sure I understand. You're talking about budget funds. So the whole point of the matter is, when we discuss the budget, that's when, it's not a matter of freezing. We still have to pay some bills that come through out of the budget.
I'm talking about funds that are essentially put aside for.
So for the ambulance, you're talking about those funds.
Yeah.
Again, that's up to the township committee, and that's all part of the process when you deal with your budget.
Right.
That wasn't dedicated by Ryder, so it's probably just part of our capital budget, right?
Yes, it was those were the monies that were set aside, that came out of, from the billing. So there was percentages that were taken out, it was used for educational purposes, for equipment. For example, we were looking to purchase at one time a new ambulance. So those monies are still there, so.
They're still intact, they're still there. Correct?
Yeah, nobody's touching it, nobody's even looking to it at this particular
And
point.
operations or capital?
Those are, it's like a separate
account, you'll see it in the.
yes. Again, that's all budget time.
Okay, moving on. Roger, I know you have volunteer appointment procedures.
Yeah, it seemed that in the past, there really is no formal procedure, so I did a little bit of research and I found a town that actually had a nice, just a simple 2-page written policy about appointing. And basically, it gives a nice introduction about benefits of volunteering, then just states a basic purpose, which obviously is just to lay it out so everybody understands what they're doing. Then it lays out a recruitment application process, which I thought this was very fair. In October each year, the town clerk will notify all appointed volunteers whose terms expire December 31st of the same year, informing them that they must submit a completed application if they wish to be considered for reappointment. The town clerk shall advertise a notice of vacancies at town hall and on the town's website and Facebook pages. This notice shall specify the vacancies for all boards and commissions and will set forth the details regarding the application procedures and the deadline for receipt of applications. In order to be considered by the council, a new member must file an application with the town clerk by the due date set forth in the notice. Then it lays out a selection and appointment process. Under reappointment of current members, it actually mentions considering the following performance standards. Number 1, attendance. It is expected that the members understand the commitment required and attend meetings. Members which have been absent for 25% or more of regular meetings shall not be considered for reappointment. Extenuating circumstances such as sickness may be considered. Number 2, effort. Members who have not become knowledgeable about their duties or have failed to comply with required training and/or continuing education should not be considered for reappointment. And number 3, professionalism. While differences of opinion are anticipated and encouraged, and members must be allowed to full voice, members are expected to be civil and observe recognized rules of order and procedures. Members who are quarrelsome, disruptive, or use their authority inappropriately would not be considered for reappointment. And under appointment of new members, it gives a little criteria. service on other boards and commissions, background, commitment, potential conflict of interest, and recommendation by a board or commission chair and/or town administrator. And then filling unexpired terms, applications not selected and applications received after the due date will be kept on file in accordance with record retention schedule and will be considered when vacancies arise during the year. Outgoing members, the township will prepare a recognition and appreciation for outgoing member service. Outgoing members will be invited to attend the town council meetings to be recognized. So I think this is.
I think there's some
This
valid.
is this is my only copy, but I think.
Well, then take it. Can you email it to us?
I think that's
Yeah.
a good.
You take it, and email it to us all.
And then I found a basic attendance policy from another one. It said, in order for a board or commission to be effective and efficient and accomplish their purpose, its members must be actively involved and attentive to the business of the body. Therefore, all members are required to attend at least 65% of regular and special meetings of the body and assigned committees and subcommittees held in any one calendar year with no excused absences. And then it says, in order to be eligible for reappointment to a board or commission, a member must have attended at least 75%. A member of the board shall be automatically removed failure to attend any 3 consecutive regular meetings of the body. So I think this should hold some weight too, because I don't know if anybody's ever looked at some.
Well, I agree with some of
past-
the application process, but I just find it.
I mean, we can tweak that.
That
We can tweak
you're
the
bringing it
percentage.
up this year, you've been here for 2 years, now that all of a sudden we want to make changes to the way
You know,
that we go through this process.
Well, last year we started up with
We're
tons
doing
of
it the same way
interviews.
we're doing it this year, we're doing interviews.
No, we didn't even advertise. We got applications from people that we didn't even advertise.
I gave you the application process, I think is valid.
No, I'm
But as
saying
far as
people,
the selection process,
people send in submissions saying, I applied for this. And we didn't even apply for it. We didn't even post it anywhere. I'm saying this lays out saying, hey, we'll post it.
And I give
People
you
can
that
apply
there's
on a
some,
certain
I
date.
give you that there's valid points in there, but at the end of the day, these are appointments and the selection process shouldn't be dictated by an ordinance. It's already in here and it, Joe.
Some of the positions, like the boards, for example, like the planning board, and even the library board, slightly different, but they're dictated by state law. So it says, for example, the mayor makes certain appointments. The mayor makes certain appointments with the advice and consent of the township committee. So that doesn't mean there can't be a procedure to do it.
Yeah, I'm basically laying out an application procedure just so that everybody's aware. And this lays out exactly what we're doing anyway. You're gonna interview people and you're gonna weigh things like their backgrounds, their service.
So you're saying that we're doing this already?
No.
Nobody checked
No,
attendance records.
no, we didn't
Did
even-
you all get them? I sent them to you.
We didn't even do this. The thing I said
Well, why
about
wasn't
recruitment.
that one guy pulled off?
Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
I've read the entire recruitment application process. We didn't do any of this. In October, the clerk would notify people of their expiring terms. We didn't do that. Then
Mark, I said, I
advertise
think that
vacancies.
some of that is valid, I really do.
Advertise, I'm saying
That's why I asked, if
advertise
you could send
vacancies.
it, you could send that to us all, we can go through it, we can put something together that we can all agree on.
And I didn't know if there was a formal volunteer
Well, we
application.
have one or not, you direct.
It's very vague.
No,
That
that's a
maybe-
citizen leadership thing. This one's just a basic.
That's what.
This one's a basic volunteer.
So you said somebody needed to be pulled off. Who was?
A guy-
Wait, let's not
Don't
say
say
the
names.
name.
Just
Later.
don't do any-
I'm not
don't
gonna
say
say any names, but there's one guy missed,
Yeah, 8 out of 10 meetings.
yeah, I mean, come on. You know, that's important. You could hold up applications or, you know, these
Well, that's something else that
developers
we can work
bring in.
with our boards to have, make sure that they tell us. Because otherwise we don't know, unless we ask for those reports all the time about attendance. So we can
I
instruct.
know,
we
Gail,
can
you were on the
instruct
planning board, you never noticed you were missing a guy?
No, I noticed that we were
You
missing
never
that
brought
one
it up to
person.
anybody?
Yeah, those boards, the municipal land use law has.
Well,
We
you
always
didn't
had-
have,
Well, we always had a quorum, so.
The municipal land use law has, some, it talks about missed meetings and removal of members for missing consecutive meetings.
It wasn't.
no, just things, I'm not blaming everybody here, but you're like trying to blame Mark. What I'm trying to say is, there's a lot of things that have gone lax for many, many years in this town. And when you try to bring them up, it's like you're stirring the pot. Well, It's only doing things the right way. There's ordinances that aren't followed. There's a lot of stuff in this town that's been wrong. So we're trying to right it.
I think it's interesting.
It's just basic stuff.
That we're trying to write it after the change of leadership. I mean, you have 2 years to.
Mike,
I'm sorry,
don't
did
get
you
me
come up with
started.
one? Did you come up with one?
Don't get me
You've been here longer than I
started.
have, and you didn't come up with
You, how long have you been in, and tell me one thing you've actually done? Give me one thing, just one.
Okay, come on, I'm gonna.
Dangerous tree ordinance, that's it.
Woman Boniface, please, let's move.
No, but I'm just saying.
I know, we keep going
I
back to the
had
past.
I
don't
had a
wanna-
resident
bring it
wait,
up. Let's just do what we gotta
email
do.
me because Mike wouldn't answer her back. I mean, that's the stuff, I don't need to get an email when they email somebody else, and because they don't answer the email, I have to get it.
We all
This
go
is
back
the
and
stuff
forth
I'm
about
talking
things that we
about.
hear from other residents about
Yeah,
each
I
other.
know, but
So-
I got the email,
All
and
right.
it was about a dangerous tree.
I want to move on. Can I have a motion to approve resolution 2020-34, a resolution authorizing the issuance of requests for qualification of professional services for township planner, township redevelopment planner?
Just, I think this should be divided into 2 resolutions, which should be 2020-34 for township planner and 2020-35 for township redevelopment planner. Right, as it reads right now, I interpret this as one position, and it's really 2 positions that are currently being held by one.
Fair enough. So
So
all
that
for
makes sense, because some of it, we can get reimbursed from the redevelopers. So it probably makes sense to have it, even if it's the same person, just have it 2 separate positions.
All right, so
It exists as 2 separate positions. It's just listed here as one.
duly noted, so let's split it if we could. So I'll have a motion for 2020-34 resolution authorizing the issuance of requests for qualification of professional services for the township planner.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, can I have a motion for resolution 2020-35? Resolution authorizing the issuance of request for qualification of professional services for the township redevelopment planner. Motion,
So moved.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Attorney's report?
Actually, I think I covered most of what I had to say previously, and we have a couple of closed session items. The reason that 120 is on there, that's a tax appeal. That's because the building was removed, and obviously the assessment goes down. We're working on what the proper valuation is for the land only. When it's done, we're our experts, I'll just let you know.
That was through Matt Cali then, Joe, huh?
Right.
So it was when,
It was when, right, it was for the years that they owned, actually, no, that's the way it's listed there, only because that was what was listed on the tax rolls. But I believe the only appeal that's pending is the removal of the building. So it technically wasn't Matt Cali at the time, because the new owner was the one that lived it down, but it is that property. But I'll let you know when Jamie comes up with a number.
Is that it, Joe?
Yeah.
Thank you. Correspondence, any questions regarding correspondence? Hearing none, we'll go to old business, no old business, new business.
New business, we'll have resolution payment of bills January, we'll have retired police officer John Cassidy, authorizing raffle license 52220 to the American Legion. We'll be introducing 115420 to the cap ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limit. We will probably have an appropriation transfer within the budget, and we'll have release of closed session minutes from tonight.
do we know what the payment is to John Cassidy on retirement at all?
I have it actually, it's a little over.
Is that something that?
Yeah, I don't know if we should.
No, I mean, that's just a calculation based on the term of the leave, in contract and the ordinance. So it's a mechanical formula based on, so it's not anything.
I mean, if it was,
Confidential or?
anything that has to do with personnel.
That's salary and all that's public knowledge.
I know it has to be done by resolution.
Right.
Do we have the number at all?
It will eventually
I'll give it
Yeah.
to you.
be public, I just.
Or, no, I got you. They have a copy of it, yes.
I can do that resolution, should have it.
The
amount on it.
The amount in there, right?
I think we did, those resolutions have the amount, right? When we do those,
I think it's just along with the contract.
just refers to the contract.
Yeah.
Well, we could have that number.
I have to see it. The numbers are all.
As set, yeah.
Yeah, the
correct,
number is,
on that money.
I can do those resolutions, I thought I had the number in there.
Well, is it based on just the terminal leave, or is there vacation pay
no,
in there?
it's without a
Formula, right?
It's with a full formula.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, administrators report.
Okay. I guess, most of this, I have to talk about some of this in the closed session. It's getting late here. What's something, I do have an issue, there's a resident that we're probably gonna I'll have to speak to you, Joe, about pertaining to they have to do a connection onto the sewer line. And the way that our ordinance reads, because the street is within the 5-year moratorium, that they're going to have to do some additional work. It's not just a matter of, once they do, because they have to do the sewer, have hook back up into the sewer line. As a result of that, so not only are they being charged, for having to do the whole hookup, now what it is but they also have to pay to have the street,
Because we just
no, not even infrared, it has to have to do the whole deal. So, for like a 15.
Is that on, Central?
No, this particular one is actually on Chestnut. And, it's gonna be very costly.
We have that, we have the ordinances, if the road's been redone in 5 years,
Yeah.
and it has to be torn up. Either
Yes.
utility
No,
property
that's
or private.
Yeah, it is what it is.
owner, yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, so, I was on the phone with her again today. Well, you know what, to be very honest with you, I learned an awful lot about it because she already has that. They only cover to the curb line.
Yeah.
And because they have to go all the way out to the street, she's not gonna go and have the coverage. So she has
They have a
to,
separate policy.
so she has to pay, to have the whole thing done.
There's no way they can tunnel
No,
underneath?
no.
Okay.
So,
No.
yeah, so anyway, just so you're aware about it, I don't really think there's anything I can do. I mean, she's not asking me, but, I just can't see any other way around it.
Anything
So,
else?
no, you know what, if you don't mind, I'll give my report.
Yeah, that's fine. Anything else, Joe? Attorney?
I have nothing else.
Clerk? I'm gonna give my report first this week. I was hoping Mr. Warren wasn't here, not because I didn't want to see you. But I would like to ask that we have a black meeting.
Actually, I talked about this with Mr. Davidson and the clerk also, and I hate to jump on it, but.
No, that's fine. I don't care if it's going to
A big one.
When can you be here? A big one.
Whenever it's ready.
Can we put a blue Santa hat?
Michael, you told me you wanted a bottle of Cristal, you said it's black.
You want to do it at the big meeting?
Do it February 20th. Can you be here February 29th?
Can we do it at the big meeting? That sounds.
We'll have it early so you can get out of here.
That's fine. Yeah, I think it's appropriate to recognize, party members, and I think it should be a course of regular action. I mean, we're talking about, volunteers, volunteers, but, exit policies as well. I think that's something important to recognize. And this way, it's not something that's overlooked. It's a matter of course of business, and it actually gets done every single year at the reorg meeting. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wanted to ask Mr. Rotolo if we can come up with some type of resolution for paying the donors back from the Tyson House.
Right, yes, as long as we have a list.
Do we have that?
Yes.
You should also pay the 2 women back who wasted all that money. They need to get paid back too.
Whatever is just, if that's a legitimate donation.
The two women who came when the screw up happened with the.
Well, if it wasn't monetary
No, they spent their
donation.
money.
Well, if it wasn't a monetary donation.
Don't let me go into it right here.
Okay, well, And then one last thing is I want to just, I'm considering changing the way we sit at the dais, so we'll probably have different seats when we come in. And I think that's it. I hope everyone has a good week, nice weekend, and look forward to seeing you on the 29th. Anyone want to have any report?
Oh, I do, I always do. Hello, everyone, thanks for attending. The DPW crew's busy working on some tree removal, and I've been going around town finding places that sidewalk, I happened to find a place, the sidewalk was up like 6 inches. They're gonna work on trying to reset that, which we've been talking about, instead of ripping them out. So that's a work in progress. But any resident that feels that the tree in front of their house on the right of way, which is between the sidewalk and the curb, needs to come down, please email DPW. They will come look at the tree and determine whether or not it will come down. If you have sidewalk slabs being lifted by a township tree, email DPW. They're gonna put you on a list. This is a mysterious list because I see trees taken down that I question why. It's not always easy to spot a problem. Feel free to reach out to me. I can forward the message to DPW. As of January 1st, we stopped taking computer and electronics recycling at the DPW yard or pick up by your house. Bergen County Utility Authority is located at the foot of Empire Boulevard. The hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 2 p.m. And that's take Route 17 south to the Woodbridge Moonachie exit. That's where the Fiesta is. Go up the ramp, make a left, follow Moonachie Ave all the way to the end and enter the BCUA complex there. I know this may be a little bit of an inconvenience, but we're looking at tax savings. This is just a trial. The rules fly, the directions are on a flyer over here for anybody that needs them. I did myself go to the styrofoam recycling with Committeeman Warren, ex-Committeeman Warren. I also heard a few residents went. Very environmentally friendly event. They really need to have more of them, and the people running it, they're working to do that. I said it has to, I think it should be county. The county actually have a place to go for that stuff. And don't forget to the recycling of the plastic bags so we can do, keep bringing them to tracks. And recreation. First of all, I would like to thank the Recreation Committee for a very successful year. We had a positive meeting last night, for more to come in 2020. We have our first event coming up Saturday, the 11th. That's this Saturday at 6:30 at the Ice House in Hackensack for ice skating. There's still room available. Email recreation@RochellePark, New Jersey.gov. No, NJ.gov. And they just need to know the people skating and who needs skate rentals. And that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need your report.
My only report is I reached out to my liaison assignments, so I reached out to Linda for municipal work and Graziano for Historical Society, so
Thank you.
get her meetings on my calendar.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Committeewoman Bartolo,
I just thank everyone for being here, but I have a report at this time.
Casimir.
Just along the lines of the Tyson House, we did put a deed restriction on the property, and one of the, I guess, necessities that are related to historic preservation are putting a preservation easement on there. This was a 15-year easement that was required by the county to use funds and grant money that we received. Well, we received the grant money, but we never utilized it. So I'd like to make a motion to instruct the administrator to submit for reimbursement for the maximum amount of funds that we are eligible for with that grant that we've received over 4 or 5 years ago. It has not expired. They gave us an extension.
I understand that, but since we no longer own the house, I don't know whether or not I think we'd have to return those funds.
No, we don't have to own the house, we have to preserve the house for a period of 15 years. That was my original conversation with Lenny Gold. And that was, it's certainly a different circumstance that we no longer own the piece of property. We could have gone out for this, I tried to do this a number of years ago. So let's ask
Yeah, I'll start that as well.
and submit for that. So it's a formal motion, so if there's a second, then we can have a vote on it. So that's my motion to submit for reimbursement. This way, we know it's authorized by the township committee to go after these funds. And I'm hoping that they will still reimburse us. It's about $47,000 that the taxpayers of Rochelle Park would be left without recouping. So,
Yeah, I'm fine for
So-
authorizing you to proceed.
Get
So I'm
everything
fine
you
with
can
this.
back.
Yeah, let's do it. So, is there a second on that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank
Thank
you. Anything else?
And that's it for me. I'm excited about my new liaisonship. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Can I have a motion to open the public portion? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anyone have comments? Going once, going twice? I want a motion to close. No, I'm only teasing.
No. I know Mr. Kelly's not here, so I don't know if you know the answer. When we were doing State Street, and he had said we had to do those, whatever, curb cuts, and we were supposed to get reimbursed for that, and then people mentioned how Maywood also did State Street, and they didn't do curb cuts. And it was gonna be looked into first why we had to do it, and then I was curious if we got any reimbursement.
Yeah, I actually spoke with the administrator from Maywood about that whole situation. And what had happened was that they were required to do the curb cuts. And what had happened was that they did, I believe it was on Passaic Street, and the county decided that they were going to do Maywood Avenue, I believe it was Maywood Avenue anyways, it was either one, the same year. So as a result of that, they had to come in, they still have to do it, but they had to do it after the fact. But yes, they were still required, so I double checked with Maywood, I also checked with the county, and yes, they were required to do it.
So do you know when we'll be getting the reimbursement?
You're right, I believe we've already been reimbursed.
Oh, it has been, that's good. And just to suggest, I don't know what you're talking about with rearranging up there, but just from people sitting in the audience, if you guys could put a couple of mics up there,
Yeah, I've heard a couple of people say that.
because it's lots of times it's very hard to hear when you guys are talking, so just.
I try to scream.
Well, some of you,
It's the passion.
some of you,
It's
you
the
can't.
passion.
So
There's like-
just a request.
There's like shared mics, it's like one for every other seat.
Any other comments? All right.
I forgot.
Oh, go easy.
This is for you. You requested the letter from, the superintendent. So I'm giving that to you.
I requested what?
The letter from the superintendent, authorizing the liaison for,
Oh, right, yes, yes.
I'm not very attached, but I'll
What?
accept the letter.
Just put that right.
I didn't realize
I
that.
think we received that in an email as
Okay,
well.
We received, because I know Ellen came here last week with it.
Right. So we did that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I wanna say that, I think the suggestion you made of the, a commuter parking lot might be a good idea. You know, we've got just one that's owned by ShopRite, that's right by the bus that goes into New York.
You
If we
one
have-
place, did that ever come up in the parking committee? 'Cause I thought I heard it
That
when I
property
came to
is
the
owned
one
by
meeting.
ShopRite, so
And
what
it
if it's
was-
privately owned? Why are we worrying about out-of-towners parking? That's my opinion.
You know.
Police don't
So-
want
As long as the
Yeah.
street's free, they
First,
park in the street.
plus, Matt Cali is owned by Matt Cali. So what are they gonna do, look for payment from us?
I'm just
Yeah,
sort of-
I'm just saying,
I think we have, I
I
think we
wanted
have
to knock
the
the
start of
Tyson house,
something
I
that we're
made
gonna
that.
try and see how it works.
I looked into that.
Well, listen,
Just my
from what I can tell you previously, people were parking here when Matt Cali owned the building here. What had happened was, is that somebody either fell, I believe somebody fell and got hurt, And they wound up suing Matt Kelly, and so they restricted anybody from parking in the lot.
I didn't have to walk there.
No, I'm just saying,
Go to the city, yeah.
well, I'm just saying, but
Becomes
that's
a liability.
what happens, because it becomes a liability issue.
Once you get permission.
Let's petition New Jersey Transit to push the zone up one
They,
down.
when I went to the council parking committee meeting, they said they were there 100 reasons why they didn't want to have a parking lot, just before you.
Yeah, well, I know the parking is such an issue. I think that we have an idea of what we want to do with these parking stickers, so let's see how long it takes to implement and understand how it's working.
They mentioned that they weren't in favor.
Great, thank you. Hello.
I have several questions. The first one is, the Tyson house was sold, closed, and everything. We got the check, we have to pay the commission, we have to pay back the contributors. Plus, I guess there's a few other odds and ends. Where did the rest of the money go? Back into surplus where it came from?
General fund, I think, right?
The whole amount that was
Right now,
left?
it's back in the,
Commission probably got paid out of the budget, right?
Yeah, the commission was deducted right at the closing.
For the net.
Right.
And the contributions will be a separate thing, and where it went, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it's a CFO put it, not in the general fund, no, it goes in the surplus.
Okay. Second of all, Officer Cassidy retired January 1st, I believe.
No,
No?
January 31st.
Oh, January 31st?
Yes.
By any chance, do we know what his payout is for,
They just had asked what that was. I have it on my desk. I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly what it is.
you have an approximate, how many,
Right about 100,000.
100,000?
Right around 100,000.
And then we have the police chief who is going to be retiring, rumored.
Well, it's not, to be wrong, the reality of it is that at age 65, he has to retire,
Right.
so it's not a rumor.
And in 2018, we put $200,000 in the cumulative, leave.
That's correct.
And in 2019, we put 100,000.
There's 300,000 in there, yes.
So between that and the surplus, which we put in from the house, do you think we will have enough to pay these leaves for the chief and for Cassidy?
The monies are in there for 2 out of the 3 officers right now, and we anticipate in the new budget to be able to put the addition, that's what our hopes are, is to continue to do that, with anticipating retirements.
Okay. Another question is, I think you need a new sound system. You guys are talking this way, and we're back there. We can't hear back there.
No, it's,
Well, hopefully we'll go back to the
Yeah,
old
we'll
work
do that.
session room where it's smaller, you'll hear better.
Right.
We'll go back up there.
Yeah, the next meeting, okay.
Yeah.
When the helicopter lands on the building in that room.
That's a work in progress.
It's really easy to hear in there too.
And my final question to you, we do have a maintenance, property maintenance person, do we not?
yes.
Okay. Well, I live at 117. The house next to me is 121. And I'm sure you've all noticed, if you've gone on Dan Street, coming from, say, or you went down our street or up our street, we have 2 couches sitting on the front lawn. They've been there almost a month. They've been there in the snow, the rain, the wind. I was hoping the wind would blow them in the street, but it didn't.
Did you call property maintenance? or no?
I'm a taxpayer. You have a property maintenance person that you're paying.
I understand, but if it's been a month and he hasn't gotten it.
I just want to see how long it's going to take you guys before I get in
Should
here
be kind of hard,
and
there's
think
2
about it.
couches out front.
Yeah, I would agree.
Even if he works not days and just goes around at night, you can see the light because there's lamps.
Does anyone ever sit in them, or? are you
No,
just saying
they're
yes?
just like here. They're saying
Chilling?
they put them outside because they're going to put them in the curb the next garbage day. Well, 1 garbage day, 2 garbage, it's about a month.
Bob, you'll have that looked into, please, It's on the list.
Now, if you go down my street, you can't help but notice that these couches are sitting on the lawn.
I didn't see.
Oh. I really didn't.
I didn't see them, I don't go down the street that much.
It's so
but I've been
bad
there
that someone
a
from
few times.
Chestnut Street called the girl that used to live there and said, "Why are the couches on your lawn?"
So I mean, it's spreading around the different
All right,
communities.
we'll have Mr. Davidson address
But
that
just
tomorrow.
check on what your property maintenance guy is doing, if he can't notice this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mr. Casimir too, that's your new, liaison position, right?
I'm not walking up there.
Oh, okay.
About one thing, the
Yes.
toilet over here,
Oh,
it
boy.
runs constantly. Can we not afford a plumber to get in there? And I told Bob about it a year ago.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You're telling me
Right? I'm gonna see Bob, I'll see Bob with his toolkit tomorrow.
The
woman's
main
room,
toilet
right, where I
going
don't-
towards
Where
the
you don't
senior
go.
Where I
center.
don't go.
In this hall, this main hallway, right
The little hall.
outside.
No, to the left.
No, make a
Senior
left,
center.
like you're going out of the building.
Bob,
And
the
it's on
one
the
by the
right
senior
side.
center.
I didn't
By the
know
senior
that. I
center.
didn't realize it was.
Runs, yeah, you're wasting water.
Thank you for that sanitary update. All right,
Somebody could work on that. That's-
nothing else? I like, oh,
One more.
please.
Charlie Greco, 46 Beach Street. Notice a lot of people tonight aren't giving their addresses. Do you have to do it at this meeting also?
Yeah, you should.
Because I know we did mention that a couple years ago, but it should be done for the record, I thought.
I'll make sure.
I know what.
Okay. And my other question is, on the OEM emails, was this done for a reason, or was he ever explain why there was a change in the emails, the way they were going out?
Last year, I'm not sure.
There was contact and discussion by, I believe, both the administrator and our attorney, as well as myself as the OEM liaison.
Okay. And there was a justifiable reason for it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the reason was that the policy that he had, or the procedure that he normally adheres to, was a procedure that he adhered to, back when he first started doing the OEM, duties, and, it's, consistent with the other departments of the township.
So it wasn't just on a whim?
That, I don't know why it changed in that time period, but, there was a change, and there was a noticeable change. And when I asked about the change, he mentioned that it was, the procedure that was already in effect prior to, essentially a couple of years ago.
And then last year, it didn't adversely affect operations in the town at all?
No, I don't think there was any operations impact at all.
I find it hard to believe it was just on a whim, he changed, sounds like there probably was reasoning behind it that, I'm glad to see you guys voted to do what you did with this tonight, but if you go further with it, I think all those reasons should really be brought out and discussed publicly also. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's it. Can I have a motion to close?
Just one thing. I know we're here late, and just one personal privilege. Today is my son Jacob's second birthday. I want to make sure I wish him a happy birthday.
Is it 12 o'clock yet?
It's not 12 o'clock, it's still within the envelope, and we did get to, have the cake before I got here, so.
Happy birthday, Jacob. Thank you. May I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Go to closed session? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. No opposed? Any opposed?
May or may not.
Yes, we may or may not come out with action.
May or may not be on.
I gotta put my shoe on. Fell off 2 hours ago.
We're not voting.
First meeting.
I got it.
Yes.
Shut the TV off.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, I went to an anti-Semitic hate thing yesterday with Gottheimer. Funny how they talked about the slightest little thing can start out the hate.
Yeah.
We're still.
Really? The small, and that was the state police, president of the state police office. So it's very funny how he said the small thing.
Oh, we're not leaving here. I was thinking about